Dreamscape presents #Resort Romance by Samantha Chase. Narrated by Rebecca Gibble. 1. It was like stepping back in time, but not necessarily in a good way. Jace Nash climbed from his SUV and stared in disbelief. The last time he had been to Lakeview Harbor Resort was 13 years ago, and it looked exactly like this. Exactly. Almost weirdly so. Shaking his head to clear it, he turned and walked around to the back of the vehicle to grab his luggage from the trunk. The rest of his family was either here already or arriving soon. Glancing around the parking lot, he didn't recognize his parents' car, but that didn't mean they weren't here. Taking his phone out of his pocket, he tapped out a quick text to gauge where everyone was. Jace. "Hey, I'm here." 3 little dots immediately appeared on the screen. Mom. "You made good time. We're already up at the cabin." Mom. "Cabin number 14, our usual." Mom. "Do you remember the way?" Did he? Jace. "I'll swing by the lobby and get a map. It's been a while. LOL. Mom. "Should your father come and get you?" Groaning, he shook his head. Jace. "I'm fine, Mom. See you soon." And before she could answer, he slid the phone back into his pocket before making his way up to the main lodge. If everything truly was still the same as it was all those years ago, he'd find the front desk in the lobby and someone to draw his route to the cabin on a photocopied map. 2 minutes later, he stepped into the lodge and froze, because now it just felt freaky. The walls, the furniture, the pictures on the wall, everything was exactly the same. The Lakeview Harbor Resort was a family resort located in upstate New York, and Jace had come up here every summer with his family until the summer he turned 17. That was the year he had gotten the opportunity to travel to Japan on a school trip. The following year, he'd spent the summer getting ready for college, and every summer after that, he just didn't feel the need to join his parents, grandparents, and whichever random relatives accompanied them on the annual trip. And clearly I didn't miss anything because it feels like I'm stuck in a time warp. Walking over to the registration desk, he noted how most of the guests were closer to his parents' and grandparents' ages. What used to be a fun family resort now felt like a place geared towards senior citizens. He smiled as people walked by and fought the feeling of impatience because it seemed like the line was barely moving. Pulling his phone out again, he was about to scroll and check his email when he noticed he barely had a signal. Worse, there were no Wi-Fi networks to connect to. You have got to be kidding me. When it was finally his turn to step up to the desk, Jace did his best to smile politely. The gentleman standing there looked old enough to be his grandfather, and there wasn't a doubt in his mind that this guy had been working here for a long time. "Welcome to Lakeview Harbor Resort. Are you checking in today?" "Hey, I'm Jace Nash, and I'm here with my family. They're already checked in, and of course your grandmother told us to be on the lookout for you. Cabin 14, he said cheerily as he picked up a map. "What you're going to do is go right out those doors, around the corner there, and take the marked path past the picnic area." He drew on the map with a black marker for emphasis. "Once you pass the volleyball court and the pool, you'll take the path to your left, and then follow it until you hit cabin 14. Smiling, he handed Jace the paper. "Anything else I can do for you?" "Yes, I was curious about the Wi-Fi. There's nothing coming up on my phone for a network, so—" "The Lakeview Harbor Resort doesn't have Wi-Fi, Mr. Nash. We encourage our guests to enjoy all the activities we have to offer, as well as the beautiful scenery and nature." And the thing was, the guy was serious. "Is there anything else I can help you with?" "Thanks. I think this will do it. Have a nice day." With a smile and a nod, Jace turned and walked toward the doors. Staring at the map as he went, he realized he probably could have found his way on his own. The route was fairly direct, and when he stepped outside, the path was also clearly marked. Still, he paused and checked his phone again, but realized it was a lost cause for now. If he really needed to do anything, he'd have to get in his car and drive into town. Or cut this trip short. It was his grandparents' 55th anniversary, and this was where they wanted to celebrate with everyone. Last Jace heard, there wasn't a final head count on who was coming to the party, but he figured at least a dozen or so relatives. That meant he couldn't really cut out early. He was here for a minimum of 10 days, so he was going to have to make the best of it. Sliding his phone back into his pocket, he took a moment to get his bearings when... Oof! Stumbling forward, he turned to see who or what had bumped into him. What the hell? His words died in his throat, and now it definitely felt like he had fallen back in time. The woman standing behind him was a petite brunette wearing a big floppy hat and oversized sunglasses. She might be hiding under all of that, but Jace swore he'd know her anywhere. "Oh my God, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I wasn't paying attention to where I was going." She fumbled with her purse and phone and suitcase while not truly looking at him. Reaching out, she asked, "Are you okay?" Was she serious? Yeah, fine. No worries. Are you okay?" Now she looked up, and her soft gasp told him she was equally shocked. "Hey, Kelsey," he said softly. Taking off her sunglasses, she continued to stare at him. "Jace?" Then she let out a small laugh. "Oh my, what's it been, like 10 years?" 13, he confirmed confidently, because he never forgot the last time he saw her. "So, how are you?" Her smile was a bit on the shy side. "Other than being wildly embarrassed, I'm fine. I'm usually perfectly capable of walking without being a menace to people around me." She laughed softly, shaking her head. "I'm really sorry. I was trying to read the map and should have paid attention to where I was going." Grinning, he held his map up, too. "Me too. Although after all the years I've come here, you'd think I wouldn't need it. And it's not like the grounds aren't well marked. But there's something oddly comforting about having the map." "Exactly. It's easily been 10 years since I've been back, and I thought I would need it, but now that I'm looking around, it all looks the same." Pausing, she smiled. "So, what brings you here?" "It's my grandparents' anniversary, and this was where they wanted to celebrate. Although..." Pausing, he glanced around and knew he was frowning. "I don't know why. It looks like nothing's been updated since the last time I was here. We could have taken them anywhere they wanted to go, and yet, here we are." Smiling, he asked, "What about you? What brings you back here?" "Oh, it's my mom's birthday and, nostalgia and all that." "It certainly doesn't get more nostalgic than this." Leaning in a bit, he added, "I'm feeling like I'm 16 again. It's like this place is frozen in time." She nodded. "I heard this is their last summer season, and then they're closing. It makes me sad because I have a lot of great memories of our trips here." Sighing, she added, "It just felt like I needed to come back one last time before they close." "I had no idea they were closing. But you have to admit the place has seen better days." He was about to say more when his phone began to vibrate in his pocket. "Excuse me a moment." "Mom, are you lost? LOL. Mom, do we need to send a search party?" Rolling his eyes, Jace quickly tapped out a response. Jace. Just taking my time and admiring the view. His eyes immediately went to Kelsey before he finished. Jace. I'll be there soon. Mom. Okay, just checking. Putting his phone away, he couldn't help the smile on his face. Kelsey Brooks was the one who got away. They used to spend every summer together while they were at Lakeview Harbor Resort with their families. It was a summer romance sort of thing because they lived hundreds of miles apart the rest of the year. At 16, they had made promises about all the things they were going to do when they saw each other again. But none of those plans came to fruition because they hadn't seen each other again. Until now. So, he finally forced himself to say, I would love to catch up with you while we're both here. What cabin are you staying in? Years ago, she always had the cabin next door. He was in 14, she was in 16. It would be a bizarre coincidence if that was still the case. 16, she said, smiling. That was always our cabin, so when I made the reservation, I made sure I asked for it. What about you? Our usual too. 14. Care to walk with me? Holding out his arm to her, he caught that shy smile again. Kelsey took a moment to put her phone and the map in her purse before hooking her arm with his and reaching for her suitcase with her free hand. Lead the way. In any other situation, running into Jace Nash would have been a nightmare. But today, it literally saved her sanity. They strolled along like they had all day to get where they were going, and the entire time they talked about memories they'd shared here at the resort. Remember the volleyball tournaments? Remember the time we instigated a s'mores eating contest? What about all the times we used the rope swing to get into the lake? Or how many times we tipped our canoes over? It felt good to laugh. Life had been, well, there hadn't been anything to laugh about lately, so this was a definite treat. Her therapist had been encouraging her to go out and find her joy. But it looked like maybe her joy finally found her. Hopefully they got new canoes since then, Jace was saying as they veered left on the path toward the cabins. There's no way they couldn't, right? I don't know, she teased. I mean, look around. Everything else seems exactly the same. Then she groaned. What? What are you thinking of? The beds were so uncomfortable. The mattresses were so thin it was almost more comfortable to sleep on the floor. Beside her, he laughed. Damn, I had forgotten about that. I typically got the sleeper sofa, which I used to love, but I have a feeling my 30-year-old body isn't going to sleep quite as soundly on it. Now, let's try to be optimistic, she reasoned. Maybe the exterior of everything has been a bit neglected, but perhaps they paid some attention to the interior. He playfully nudged her shoulder. If that were the case, would they be closing? Personally, I don't think one has anything to do with the other. Just the scope of updating this place is probably more than they can handle. I'm sure there are developers just dying to get their hands on this property and turn it into vacation homes that will go for $1 million each. Bloodsuckers. Okay, wow, he said with amusement. That sounds like a stretch. Why wouldn't some other big resort company buy the place and do all the upgrades? The place has good bones, but just needs a major rehab. Because no one seems to do that sort of thing anymore. I've seen more than my share of places get bulldozed in favor of something new and shiny, typically in the form of luxury homes or condos. I'm so over it. They walked in companionable silence as they passed the first cabin. So, what do you do for a living now? He asked. So not the topic she wanted to discuss. I'm a social worker, she told him. And you? An electrical engineer. I have a feeling I'm going to be looking at multiple infractions while I'm here. Shaking his head, he chuckled. I have a tendency to inspect things when I'm supposed to be relaxing. That made her smile. It's good to be passionate about your work. It shows you care. Or I just like telling people they're wrong and how they need to fix things. At least that's what my family is always telling me. They both softly laughed. Everyone's a critic until you save them a bunch of money, he added. Are you still living up in Rochester? For now. Damn it, why did I say that? Oh, are you thinking of moving? You know me, I was always thinking of moving, she said lightly, hoping he didn't read too deeply into it. Someplace warmer would be great. The winters are always brutal. I left Long Island after college. I'm down in Raleigh now, and while we don't get a lot of snow, the winters can be fairly cold. Like you, I wanted to move someplace warmer, but I still wanted the seasons. I've got that now. She nodded and listened as he talked more about what he loved about North Carolina, and she was more than happy to let him carry the conversation. It was the perfect way for her to get through the walk to the cabin without being completely overwhelmed with painful memories. Now, see? Look at these cabins, Jace was saying, gently nudging her shoulder again. Peeling paint, weathered wood, and everything just looks a little gray. Such a shame. I don't think a fresh coat of paint would be enough to save them. Sadly, she had to agree. Each cabin would probably require $10,000 to $20,000 in repairs, and that's not including the main lodge. Don't forget they have several dozen rooms in there, too. These cabins were meant for families with kids, so you could all stay together. We always got the 2-bedroom and shared it with my grandparents, leaving me on the fold-out couch. And then whenever other relatives joined us, they stayed up at the lodge. I'd be curious how those rooms have fared, because the lobby was looking a little rough. The sigh was out before she could stop it. It really is a shame. So many great childhood memories, and come Labor Day, it will all be gone. Makes me sad that no other families will get the opportunity to bring their kids here to swim in the lake, or paddle the canoes, or roast marshmallows around the campfire. Jace stopped walking, and it took Kelsey a moment to realize they were standing in front of her cabin. Is your mom here already? He asked. A lump formed in her throat, and she had to force herself to simply nod before responding. Yep, she's here. And your folks? Before he could answer, his family was coming out of the cabin and calling his name. Carefully, she disengaged and took a step away. Jace, you made it! His mother cried as she came down the porch steps to hug him, followed by his father and grandparents. It was good to see you, Jace, she said. But I need to get inside, too. Hang on a sec, he told her before facing his family. Everyone, you remember Kelsey Brooks, right? Oh my goodness, yes, his mother said before coming over and hugging her. Kelsey felt herself tense up for a second before relaxing. Everyone greeted her and asked how she'd been, and it was all incredibly sweet. I hope you'll all excuse me, but I need to get inside, she said, taking another step back. Here, let me help you with your suitcase, Jace said, reaching for it. No, she said a little too abruptly. No, it's okay, I can do it. Go with your family. I'm good. But he wasn't listening. Lifting her luggage, he laughed. What do you have in here? It feels like everything plus the kitchen sink. Even though she knew he was joking, she still felt wildly uncomfortable. Following him up the porch steps, she took the key out of her pocket. I got it from here, Jace. Thank you. For a moment, he just studied her with a boyish grin. I still can't believe you're here. Promise me we'll get to spend some time catching up." Nodding, she held up her key. "I really should get inside, and, your family is intently watching us, so—" "Ah, got it. Okay." Leaning in, he placed a gentle kiss on her cheek before stepping back. "Tell your mom we all said hello and we can't wait to see her. Maybe we can all have dinner together one night." The lump in her throat was back. "Maybe," she whispered. He seemed reluctant to leave, but when his grandmother called out, "Jace, let the poor girl go see her mother. You'll have plenty of time to catch up this week. We haven't seen you in a long time either." His laugh was low. "I guess that's my cue to leave, huh?" All she could do was nod. "I'll see you later, Kels." "See you later, Jace." Without watching him go, she quickly turned and opened the cabin door before grabbing her suitcase and dragging it inside. Closing the door behind her, she locked it. The cabin smelled like it was freshly cleaned, but as she looked around, she saw there was a lot of wear and tear. The furniture was old and faded. The carpet was worn, and it looked exactly like it did the last time she was here. She let out a long sigh as she dragged the suitcase to the main bedroom. Laying it on the floor, she unzipped it before taking a few minutes to walk around. This cabin was a one-bedroom with a loft. When she was younger, her parents always took the bedroom, and she used to love having the loft to herself. It wasn't overly large, but it had always felt like the coolest little hideaway. Walking over to the stairs, which were really just a chunky ladder, she considered climbing up and checking it out. Maybe later. The living room was just as cozy as she remembered. The kitchen was tiny but efficient, and the bathroom was almost comically small. Not that it used to matter. People came up to Lakeview Harbor Resort because they loved the outdoors. The cabins were merely a place to sleep. There were no TVs, and from what she learned when she checked in, there was no Wi-Fi either. For the next 10 days, she was going to be almost completely off the grid and unplugged. "And it feels weird already," she murmured, wandering back to the bedroom. Staring down at the suitcase, she crouched down and finished opening it, pulling out the large, carefully wrapped urn. Carrying it out to the living room, she placed it on the coffee table before sitting down. "Here we go." "Well, Mom, we're here," she whispered. "But it's only day 1, so I need some time. I'm not ready yet. For now, you're stuck hanging out with me here in our favorite cabin." Tears rolled down her face. This had been her mother's last request, to have her ashes scattered at the one place their family had made the most memories. At the time, Kelsey had agreed without hesitation. But now her heart was breaking all over again, because this meant she had to let her mother go one last time. What she wouldn't give to have her mother there, healthy and alive, so they could talk about all the things they were going to do. That was always their tradition on the first day. They'd talk about what activities they were most excited about and all the people they were looking forward to seeing. The resort had a lot of returning guests, and they'd all become friends. As Kelsey had gotten older and started having feelings for Jace, she and her mom would talk about it. "Can you believe he's here, Mom? What are the odds?" Of course, there was no answer. But in her heart and in her mind, she had to wonder if maybe her mom had a little something to do with it. 2. It was hard to focus on celebrating with his family when he knew that Kelsey was just 20 feet away. His parents and grandparents were thrilled to see him because ever since his move to North Carolina, his visits were typically only 2 to 3 times a year. Knowing the visit would last 10 days was causing a lot of excitement, which was weird to him because he didn't feel like it was that big of a deal. They had all of his favorite snacks waiting for him in the cabin and a champagne toast at the start of the vacation. They also took what felt like 100 pictures. It was such a blessing to have this time with everyone, and he knew this was where his attention needed to be no matter what. "Should we invite Kelsey and her mom to dinner?" his mother asked. "Do you think they already have plans?" Jace didn't want to seem too eager, so he shrugged. "Maybe we can plan that for tomorrow. We don't want to intrude on their trip. Kelsey mentioned this trip was for her mom's birthday, but she didn't say what day it actually was." "They were always such a nice family," his grandmother chimed in. "It was a terrible thing when her parents divorced." He remembered the summer after it happened. Kelsey was devastated, but her mother had insisted that they stick to their annual vacation plans. That was the summer they were 12, and she spent a lot of time being sad, and he spent a lot of time doing goofy things to try to cheer her up. "People get divorced all the time," he reasoned, and it seemed like they moved on and were okay after a little while. The following summer had been a complete 180. Kelsey had returned looking like the girl he always knew, but suddenly he took notice of her as more than a friend. He'd been completely smitten and did everything he could to spend as much time with her as possible. After going home to Long Island, which was 6 hours away from Rochester, they would text and call each other all the time. They liked to say they were dating, but he knew she still went out with other boys and he dated other girls. But the summers were theirs. "It's weird because we didn't see anyone go into the cabin before Kelsey got here," his mother told him. "I saw housekeeping come out, but nobody else went in." "Mom, you know it's possible that she went in while no one was looking, right? You weren't standing out on the porch with no distractions," Jace said with a laugh. "Maybe." "Okay, so what are our plans for the rest of the day? Where are we having dinner? Here at the lodge, or are we going into town?" "Oh, we have to eat dinner at the lodge," his grandfather said. "That's tradition. You know that. We always spend the first night having a big dinner up in the main dining room, and then we have dessert near the fire." He sighed happily. "Tradition." "So nothing's changed here either," he mumbled. "What's that, Jace? Did you say something?" his father asked. "What? Just saying how nothing's changed." Another small laugh. "I kind of feel like a kid again. Although I hope I still fit on the sleeper sofa. I'm a bit taller now than I was at 16. That really hadn't occurred to him until just that moment. "Maybe I should see about a room up at the lodge." "No," his mother whined. "We always stay here together." "Mom, be reasonable. I'm not a child anymore, and it's a lot to ask of me to sleep in a bed that's too small for me for 10 days. Plus, all the other relatives who are joining us are either staying in another cabin or up at the lodge." Damn it, why didn't I think of this sooner? "We can check it out after dinner, Jace. But then it will be too late. I'll just call the front desk and see if they have anything available. I can't imagine them being booked solid." And before anyone could argue, he whipped out his phone and tried to look up the number. "You could just use the cabin's phone," his grandmother pointed out. "It has a direct line to the front desk." "Thanks, Gram. That would be much easier." He walked over to where the phone was hanging on the wall. I didn't think anyone used phones like this anymore. It's part of the charm. Rather than comment, Jace simply pushed the button for the front desk. "Lakeview Harbor Resort, this is Dottie. How may I help you?" "Hey, Dottie, this is Jace Nash. I'm staying in cabin 14 with my family, but I was curious if you had any other rooms or cabins available." She gasped softly. "Oh, no. Is something wrong with the cabin? Should I send the maintenance team over? No, that's not necessary. There are 5 of us in the cabin, and it was fine when I was a kid, but it's a little tight now. Ah, okay. Whew. Let me see what we have. We have availability here in the lodge, but cabin number 15 is also vacant. I can have someone come down there and bring you the key if you'd prefer. His first thought was how it might be nice to be up at the lodge for the sake of privacy. But then he thought of how nice and convenient it would be to stay right here, where he could potentially spend more time with Kelsey. The cabin sounds perfect. Thank you, Dottie. For the next few minutes, he did the registration over the phone, and when they were done, she promised someone would meet him within the next 15 minutes. Done, he said as he hung up the phone. And I'll be right across the path in number 15, so it will almost feel like we're all still staying together. I just hate that it didn't work out. His mother was a little famous for her guilt skills, but Jace wasn't going to be swayed. What if we want to have a late-night game of Scrabble? I'm literally going to be 20 feet away. I can still play the game and walk across the path to go to sleep, Mom. She sighed dramatically. Fine. I guess we should enjoy the time we have together now before you leave. To walk right across the path, he interrupted. You can see my cabin from your window. Just turn your head and you can see it. Pausing, he glanced around again. Besides, if they had updated these cabins, it probably wouldn't be a problem. A Murphy bed with a regular-size mattress would have worked. I have a feeling if we unfold that sofa bed, it might be the same mattress I slept on as a kid. You know he's right, his father agreed. We've all complained about the lack of updates. It's no wonder they're closing at the end of the season. So you knew about that too? Kelsey mentioned it to me while we were walking here. Jace, of course we know. We've been coming here every summer for almost 30 years. It's why we decided to have your grandparents' party here. It just felt like something we needed to do. After all, it's the end of an era. Do you know what they're going to do with the property? Did they sell it to another resort company, or is it all going to be knocked down? Last we heard, it was just closing. The couple who owns it didn't want to see it destroyed, but no one else in the family wanted to take it on. So sad. His mother said wearily, a family-owned business, and no one in the family will save it. She made a tisking sound. I can't even imagine how heartbreaking it is for them. Some businesses aren't for everyone, you know, he suggested. I mean, I have my firm, but if I ever have kids of my own, there's no guarantee they'll want to be electrical engineers. It's not the same, Jace, his father said. You can sell a firm or someone else can take it over. It's a different kind of business. A place like this resort is just... it's special. The sheer number of people who have vacationed here, made memories here, is probably too much to even imagine. No offense to what you do, but when an engineering office closes, there aren't going to be generations of families reminiscing about all the memories they made there. None taken. And I get what you're saying. Hell, it makes me sad thinking about it because, yeah, we have so many great memories of our time here. I made a lot of friends here. Friends I still keep in touch with. And you met Kelsey here, his mother reminded him. There was a time when I thought the two of you were going to be more than childhood sweethearts. I thought you'd end up going to college together and eventually get married. His eyes went wide. Seriously? She nodded. We all did. Looking around, everyone was nodding their heads. Why didn't you ever say anything? What was the point? You were very adamant about going to Japan that summer, and I asked you a few times about what Kelsey was going to think, but you just brushed it off like it wasn't a big deal. She shrugged. I never expected you to never come back here for another vacation. You know, until now. Yeah, well... His words were cut off by someone knocking at the door. I'll bet that's someone with my key. When he opened the door, that's exactly who was there. Turning back to his family, he grabbed his suitcase. I'm going to go unpack and settle in. How about I meet you back here in an hour, and then we'll go for a walk down to the lake? Or just hang out until dinner? How does that sound? Everyone agreed it sounded great, and he practically sagged with relief when he joined the clerk out on the porch. Here's your key, Mr. Nash. I'm Ken, and if there's anything you need, just let me know. Hey, Ken, thanks for meeting me down here. I already inspected the cabin, and it's been freshly stocked. If you'll just sign the receipt, we'll be all set. It was almost comical to be physically signing a hotel registration form instead of doing it digitally, but he signed and smiled. Thanks, Ken. I'm sure it will all be great. You're very welcome. Have a nice day. He took a quick glance at Kelsey's cabin before turning his attention to the one he was going to occupy. Thanks. I'm sure I will. What in the world was Jace doing? Kelsey wondered. She had just happened to look out her window and saw him going into the cabin across the way. Was there something wrong with the one his family was staying in? Were they all going to move across the path? After peeking out from behind the curtains, she didn't see anyone else follow, and that just made her even more curious. He said he was staying with them, so why leave less than an hour later? Okay, I seriously need to find something to do other than stalking the neighbors, she murmured. So she finished unpacking and was going to sit and read, but it was far too quiet in the cabin, like almost eerily quiet. Grabbing her hat, sunglasses, and key, she opted to go out and explore the property and see if anything had changed. Everything she'd seen so far hadn't, but maybe if she went down toward the lake, there would be something new. Just as she stepped outside, she spotted Jace coming out of his cabin. He waved, and she waved back. Hey, he said, jogging over. Where are you off to? I was just going to get some fresh air and stroll down to the lake. I'm super curious if maybe they updated anything down there by the docks. Would you like some company? God, yes. Sure, she said casually. That would be great. Climbing down the steps, she motioned to cabin 14. What happened? It looks like you moved in across the way. They began slowly walking down the path toward the lake. Between our conversation on the walk over and then stepping inside and seeing things hadn't changed one bit, I knew there was no way I was going to fit on the sleeper sofa. If it were only for a night or two, it would be one thing, but 10 days? He shook his head. Absolutely not. And your family was okay with you staying in another cabin? My mother is the queen of the guilt trip, and she immediately began to lay it on thick. But she couldn't argue with the fact that I'm a grown man and that sofa wasn't going to cut it. I called the front desk and could have stayed up at the lodge, but when they said 15 was available, I figured it would appease everyone. She nodded. And very convenient. That too. They walked along quietly for a few moments. How's your cabin? Does it feel smaller than you remember? Definitely. Especially the bathroom. I don't know how families with more than one kid do it. It was tight when there were 3 of us in there. After my parents divorced, it was kind of nice having it just be me and my mom. Now it was Jace's turn to nod. How's your dad? Do you see him often? He passed away 5 years ago. Heart attack, she said solemnly. It was a total shock, but up until then we had been pretty close. After the divorce, he only moved about 15 minutes away, so we saw each other a lot. And after a while, he and my mom could be in the same room with each other without arguing. Damn, Kelsey. I'm so sorry. He reached for her hand and gave it a gentle squeeze. Thanks. I miss him like crazy. But I have peace knowing we were always in a good place. No regrets except I wish we'd had more time.
I can only imagine.
Damn. Do you mind if we change the subject? She asked, keeping her gaze straight ahead.
Not at all.
He paused.
If there are canoes down there, would you like to take one out?
Looking up at him, she grinned. Are you sure? The last time we did that, we tipped it over 3 times, and we're not in our bathing suits, so maybe we save that for another day? His laugh was low and so very masculine. The grown-up version of Jace Nash was so much more than she ever imagined. The dark hair, dark beard, and the piercing blue eyes with the little crinkles at the corner. Kelsey could still clearly see the boy she had grown up with, but the man he now was, he was even more appealing. Jace was still holding her hand, and it felt like the most natural thing in the world, which was weird, since they hadn't seen each other for 13 years. Back then, it was exciting to have a summer boyfriend. Whenever they went back home, they kept in touch, but they each dated people they went to school with. Geography definitely did not help them, but at the time it didn't seem like a big deal. In her heart, she knew that Jace was always the one for her. Until he wasn't. That first summer he didn't come with his parents, she was crushed. Then their calls and texts became less frequent until they eventually just stopped. We were just kids, she'd tell herself. There was no way they were serious about each other. After all, they weren't even exclusive. That didn't make her teenage heart break any less. So now, here they were. And it was nice. Very nice. It was still chaste and sweet and so exactly what she needed today.
What are your plans for dinner tonight?
He asked after several quiet moments. I'm not really sure yet. What about you?
Dinner up at the lodge. It's tradition,
He said with a hint of amusement.
Personally, I was hoping for something a little different. But it's what my grandparents want, so that's what we're doing.
It's really sweet how they still love this place after all these years, and they want to keep the traditions. I know you might not think it's a big deal, but one day those traditions are just memories, and you miss them. The wistful sigh was out before she could stop it.
Are you thinking about your dad? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to upset you again.
It's okay, Jace. Really. And I wasn't thinking about my dad specifically. Being back here after so many years is just a reminder of all the hopes and dreams I used to have. It's crazy how a place can hold so many memories, good and bad. And yet, because it was such a big part of my childhood... Pausing, Kelsey shook her head. I don't even know what I'm trying to say. Sorry. He squeezed her hand.
No need to apologize. I get what you're saying. I'm making light of the whole thing, but the truth is, this place was a big deal for me too. I think of all the people we used to hang out with who are still friends to this day.
Looking up at him, she asked, You still keep in touch with everyone?
Not everyone,
he began, stopping to think.
But I do still talk to Axel, Connor, Milo, Slater, and Walker.
Another pause.
Yeah, I think that's it.
You still talk to Walker, and he never mentioned that his grandparents were closing this place down? Shaking his head, he replied,
Nope. We were talking sports the last time. The Stanley Cup playoffs. And the last time he mentioned this place, it was a while ago, and it was just a casual mention.
He shrugged.
I guess it is kind of strange that it didn't come up.
I'm so curious about what's going to happen to all of this. They reached the docks, and there were canoes over to one side and paddle boats on another. Ooh, they all look fairly new. I don't remember the paddle boats, do you? He shook his head again.
No, but I have a feeling the same rules would apply to us. We aren't dressed for the risk of landing in the water.
Laughing, she had to agree. Well, drats. It's so peaceful out here. It seems like a shame to not be on the water.
We'll do it tomorrow, I promise,
he said, as he released her hand and slowly maneuvered them until she was in his arms. They stared out at the water, and it was just a perfect moment.
I missed you, Kels.
Sighing softly, she rested her head on his chest. I missed you too. I always thought I'd see you again, and it broke my heart that you never came back here. Then she laughed quietly. Never in a million years did I think we'd see each other after all these years right back in the place where we met.
Not seeing you or saying a proper goodbye is one of my biggest regrets. Back then, it just felt like no big deal when I didn't come the first time. I went to Japan and had an amazing time, and I wished I could come here and tell you all about it.
He let out a long breath.
I feel like my senior year of high school was a blur. There was football and proms and finals and college tours. After a while, it felt like my time wasn't my own. My parents had it planned that we were coming back that summer, but
there was no need for him to say more. They both knew he didn't come back.
Packing and prepping for college just took on a life of its own. And by that time, I didn't think you'd even want to hear from me.
At the time, I probably didn't. I had my own stuff going on, and it was all good. I just missed talking to you and spending time with you. That 1 month every summer was always special. She felt him nod.
I know 10 days isn't really enough to make up for those 2 summers, or all the time since. But I'd really like to have the chance to get to know you again.
I'd like that too, she whispered, as his arms gently tightened around her.
About dinner tonight.
Pulling back slightly, Kelsey looked up at him. He looked so happy and relaxed and hopeful.
My family wanted to invite you and your mom to join us. I know it's the first night, and I don't want to impose, but I thought I'd throw the idea out there.
Tears stung her eyes, and she knew she needed to come clean. But first, she needed to not be in his arms or looking into his eyes. Okay, so I didn't say anything earlier, and I'm not even sure why I didn't, but she willed herself not to cry. When I said I was here for my mom's birthday, I guess it was natural for you to think that she was here with me. Glancing over at him, she saw the confusion written all over his face. My mother passed away recently, she said, her voice trembling. And she wanted her ashes scattered here. Honestly, I have no idea where I'm going to do it, but it is legal in the state of New York to scatter them without a permit. If this were a national park, I'd need permission, but damn it, I hate this. I hate that I'm even talking about this like it's not a big deal that I'm leaving my mom here and then the resort is going to be abandoned. And before she knew it, she was back in Jace's arms, and she was sobbing. At some point, she finally stopped, but he kept holding her.
We'll figure it out together,
he told her, his voice low and gruff.
And for tonight, you're coming to dinner with us. You shouldn't be alone. Hell, I don't want you to be alone. Chase, just humor me, okay?
Okay.
It was only delaying the inevitable, but for tonight, she'd take it. 3. To say that dinner had been underwhelming would be an understatement. The food was mediocre, even though his grandparents raved about it the entire time, and the restaurant looked dark, drab, and almost depressing. Plus, it was an early bird dinner, so Jace and Kelsey were the youngest people in the room. Still, he was happy she was there with him and his family. Knowing what he did now, it would have broken his heart knowing she was either eating by herself or sitting alone in her cabin. On their walk back from the lake, they held hands, and he'd led her directly to cabin 14 and announced that she was joining them for dinner. When everyone asked about her mother, Jace had felt her tense up, and he quietly suggested that she go and freshen up while he talked to everyone. "What's going on?" his mother asked. "Okay, so Kelsey is here on a memorial trip." When no one said anything, he explained. Her mother recently passed away and asked to have her ashes scattered here at the resort. There were gasps and whispers and words of condolences. "That poor girl," his grandmother said solemnly. And here we all were yammering on about her mother joining us. "You really should have given us a heads up, Jace," his father admonished. "That had to be very uncomfortable for her. It was very insensitive of you. I didn't know how to handle it. She just told me when we walked down to the lake. There was never going to be an ideal way to say it, but now that everyone knows, hopefully we can all just look out for her. This is going to be an emotional trip for her." "I'm so glad we happened to be here at the same time," his mother said, before giving him a slow smile. "It will be very comforting to her to have a familiar face, someone she knows almost intimately, to help her through this time." Oh, good grief. Yes, it's good that she has friends here to help her through this. He put the emphasis on the friends part so his mother didn't start getting ideas, even though Jace was already having them. After dinner, they had eaten freshly baked cookies and roasted marshmallows around the fire, and his family had gone back to their cabin about an hour ago. Now, he and Kelsey were sitting alone next to the fire pit in a pair of Adirondack chairs and getting caught up on each other's lives. "I love what I do," she was saying, "but sometimes it's just so hard when the resources aren't there or the rules aren't favorable and someone is desperately in need. It can be emotionally draining, and most days I don't feel like I've done anything except let people down." He heard the weariness in her voice. "That's got to be tough. I'm sorry." "Don't get me wrong. There are also times when I practically pull a rabbit out of my hat and do some amazing things to get families exactly what they need. But those times are feeling very few and far between." "Would you ever consider changing careers?" She immediately shook her head. "No." Then there was a long pause. "Life is just hard right now. I don't think I'd change careers, but I'd change where I live in a heartbeat." "Any idea where you want to go?" Glancing over at him, she grinned. Promise not to laugh. And that just made him grin. Maybe?" "There are 3 places I'm considering," she began. "I definitely want to move someplace warmer. I don't need tropical, but it has to be above 50 degrees most of the year." He nodded. "My top pick is Charleston, South Carolina. It just looks so charming and wonderful. Plus, the average daily temperature is 65 degrees. She hummed happily. I could seriously get on board with that. It was all very logical and nothing to laugh at, so he was a bit confused. It's a beautiful city, that's for sure. What's your next pick?
Okay, option number 2 is Savannah, Georgia. It's very historical and has a fabulous art scene, and I think I could enjoy living there. The weather is obviously going to be even warmer than Charleston, but you still get all the seasons. Another nod.
I'm guessing this third pick is the one I'm not supposed to laugh at, right?
Yep. Her smile grew. Orlando, Florida.
Because...
Theme parks, she said excitedly. Duh! How fun would it be to have all those theme parks right in your own backyard? I would never be bored. And I think it would be a great way to make friends outside of work. After all, when you're stuck in a line for a ride, you can strike up all kinds of conversations. It certainly wasn't the worst idea, and he found it to be more adorable than laughable.
None of them are bad choices,
he reasoned.
What's holding you back from making a decision?
Because that would make it all real. Final, she quietly replied, before sighing softly. It means moving away from the place I grew up and all the memories I had there with my family. Scattering Mom's ashes is one of the final steps for me, and I'm hoping to have some clarity while I'm here. Shaking her head, she met his gaze. Crazy, right? Reaching over, he took her hand in his.
No, not crazy. Making a move like that is a major life decision, and it's scary as hell. Trust me, I know because I did it.
Yeah, but you could still go back to Long Island and your childhood home and family, Jace. If I do this, it's all gone. Every connection to my family is just... Another sigh.
Oh.
It was such a small thing to say, but it genuinely hit him how much she was struggling with. Releasing her hand, he stood and stretched.
Come on, let's walk.
She looked at him like he was crazy. Walk? Chase, it's dark out, and while the paths have some lights, it's not really enough to see beyond a few feet in front of us.
Just trust me, okay?
And holding out his hand again, she grasped it and got to her feet.
I feel like I keep putting my foot in my mouth with you today.
They were leaving the fire pit area, and he started walking back toward the lodge.
Multiple times today, I've brought up topics that seem rather innocuous on the surface, but they end up upsetting you. I swear I'm not usually this insensitive.
To be fair, life in general is upsetting me, she clarified. You didn't do anything wrong. Trust me.
Well, it feels that way. So I'm going to try to do something that can't possibly make you sad.
Famous last words. That made him chuckle.
I think you're making fun of me.
She laughed, too. I think you're right. They walked along the path and then took a sharp right. Earlier tonight, when they had walked up to the lodge, Jace saw the path and was hit with a ton of memories. It was someplace he thought he'd take Kelsey to at some point, but it seemed important to bring her here now. Wait, isn't this... There was wonder and amusement in her voice, and when they made their way around another bend, he heard her gasp of pure delight. Oh my goodness! And just like everything else here at Lakeview Harbor Resort, it looked almost exactly the same as the last time he'd seen it. I can't believe you brought me to the playground! Jace, this is awesome! Gently pulling her hand from his, she ran over to the swing set and immediately sat on one of the swings, playfully kicking her legs. Come on, let's see who can still go the highest. Part of him wanted to run over and do just that, but he was an adult and quietly strolled over. When he sat on the swing beside her, he grinned. My plan was to push you on the swing like I used to when we were kids, but the challenge was too great to ignore. It didn't take long for the two of them to erupt in a fit of laughter because swinging on the swings wasn't nearly as easy as it used to be. "Isn't this supposed to be like riding a bike?" she asked, laughing. "I thought this was a skill you never outgrew." Jace was doing his best to get into the groove of it. He had height on his side, so he at least gave the illusion of swinging higher. Clearly, I've found something to add to my fitness routine. Eventually, they perfected things, but they laughed like crazy the entire time. Then they had to declare a tie because they were both getting tired. By the time Jace came to a stop, he was more than happy to get up and stand behind Kelsey and gently push her. "Thank you," she said, looking at him over her shoulder. "For what?" "For making me laugh like that. I swear it feels like I haven't laughed in months." They both grew silent for several long moments. "Do you remember all the games we used to play with everyone here? The obstacle courses we created?"
Oh, yeah. Back then we could make a competition out of anything.
Just thinking about it made him laugh.
As adults, I can tell you we still do. Whenever I talk to those guys, someone throws out a challenge of some sort.
"Really?" she asked, shaking her head. "Like what?"
The last one was a triathlon. Walker and Axel were doing one, and challenged the rest of us to do it too.
"And did you?"
Hell no. I know my limitations.
He continued to push her.
How funny would it be if all those guys were here now too? What kind of trouble do you think we'd get into?
Kelsey threw her head back and laughed. "I can't even imagine. But I have a feeling it would be far too physical and competitive for me. Lexi and I used to try to keep up with you guys, but sometimes we were fine just hanging back and watching you all run around." She tapped her shoes on the ground to slow down, and Jace stepped back to let her come to a stop. That was fun. When she stood and walked over to the jungle gym, his heart raced a bit. It was on that spot where they shared their first kiss. Would he be able to resist seeing if she remembered it too? Following her over, he couldn't help but notice how beautiful she looked in the moonlight. And just as he'd hoped, she looked a lot happier and relaxed than she had a little while ago. "You want to know what the best part of this playground was?" she asked as she turned to face him.
No, what?
"It was right here next to the slide that we kissed for the very first time," she said shyly. He tried not to smile too brightly.
I wasn't sure if you'd remember that.
"I did. And if memory serves, we came back here often because it was a little secluded from the rest of the playground."
Yup.
Carefully, he closed the distance between them.
Would it be weird if I said I'd really like to kiss you again, right in this very spot?
Kelsey's hand slowly smoothed over his chest. "I was kind of hoping you would." That was all the encouragement he needed to touch his lips to hers. Teenage Kelsey was living her dream. Adult Kelsey was too. Over the years, she often wondered what would have happened if Jace had come back for one more summer. Would they have become serious? Maybe truly become boyfriend and girlfriend? But more than anything, she wondered if she would have lost her virginity to him. It was something she had wanted more than anything at the time. Jace Nash was the first boy she had ever loved, And even though her life was kind of a mess right now, and this wasn't exactly the best time for her to do anything rash, she wanted all the things they never had the chance to do. She wanted all the things they never got to say. And more than anything, she wanted all the things they never got to finish. The kiss was a little soft, a little chaste, and she kind of liked how he wasn't the kind of guy who just dove in with abandon. This was a nice way to get reacquainted, and she allowed herself to simply melt against him. Her arms slowly wrapped around his shoulders as she hummed with pleasure. Jace must have felt the same way, because she felt his own low rumble as he started to take the kiss deeper. Then, suddenly, perfectly, things weren't so soft and chaste. They shifted, moved against each other in the moonlight. Kelsey's breath quickened as she reached up and raked her hands in his hair. His arms banded tightly around her, and it was everything she had imagined it would be. Passion was building, and it was crazy how much she wanted him, needed him. Don't go there. Seriously, her life was currently nothing but chaos and indecision, but she refused to think of this as anything more than unfinished business. Even in her own head it sounded wrong, but it was what she was going with for now. Jace lifted his head and breathlessly stared down at her.
Damn. That was nothing like the kisses we used to share here.
Blushing, she nodded. I know. This was much better. Resting his forehead against hers, he murmured,
I have to agree.
For several moments, they were content to just stay wrapped around each other. A soft breeze blew around them, and Kelsey shivered.
I forgot how cool the temperature used to get when the sun went down,
he said, holding her impossibly closer.
Maybe we should head back toward the cabins.
Okay. Hand in hand, they strolled back toward the path that would lead them to their cabins. Neither said anything, and it was a very comfortable kind of silence. Her mind wandered to what was going to happen once they got to her door. They'd kiss, obviously, but would it be wrong to invite him in? Or maybe they could go to his cabin and what, dummy? What exactly do you want to do? Pfft, that was a ridiculous question. She wanted this almost perfect night to go on. She just had no idea to what end.
What are your plans for tomorrow?
He asked.
Anything scheduled?
Shaking her head, she continued to focus on where they were walking. Nothing scheduled. I sort of came up here with no actual idea of how I was going to spend my time. I realize now I probably didn't need to book a 2-week stay, but she sighed. It could be nice to just relax and unwind with no obligations, right?
We're gonna find out,
he teased, playfully nudging her shoulder.
My grandparents are looking to play bingo and do arts and crafts. My folks are planning on keeping them company. Honestly, I don't know what they expected me to do, so I'm going to be winging it too.
Looking up at Jace, she smiled. Maybe we could wing it together? He smiled back at her.
Absolutely.
We're definitely going to try out the paddle boats, since they weren't here the last time.
Plus, they've got to be safer for us than the canoes.
They both laughed, and the next thing she knew, they were approaching their cabins. It was on the tip of her tongue to invite him to join her, but he beat her to it.
Would you like to come in for a little while? It's not very late, and with no TV or Wi-Fi, I know I would enjoy having some company.
He gently tugged her closer.
Plus, I'm not ready for this night to end.
Her heart raced at his admission, and it was slightly thrilling to know they thought so much alike. Smiling shyly, she told him, "Me either." Jace opened the door to his cabin, and when she stepped inside, she was suddenly a bundle of nerves. "So, this looks a little more updated than mine." He nodded and glanced around.
And more than the one my parents are staying in, too. Although, not by much. If I had to guess, I'd say that it sustained some damage and they didn't have a choice.
Still, you lucked out. And this floor plan looks different from the others, too. I didn't realize there were so many options. Mine has 1 bedroom and then a loft, and I know the one your family is in has 2 bedrooms, but this...
Kelsey.
Hmm?
Do you really want to talk about the different models of cabins?
His voice was low and gruff and so damn appealing. She shook her head. No. No, that's not what I want. The slight tremble in her voice surprised her, but it also didn't stop her from slowly walking over to him and stopping when they were toe-to-toe. Jace's hand reached up and caressed her cheek.
What do you want, Kels?
I don't want to be alone tonight. Even as she said the words, her heart was hammering so loudly, she wondered if he could hear it. His expression softened before he rested his forehead against hers.
You don't have to be. You can stay here, and we can stay up all night talking.
Wait. Did he not understand what she was saying? Pulling back slightly, she gave him a quizzical look. I was thinking maybe we, could spend the night, not talking? Without a word, Jace led her over to the cozy sofa and gently tugged her to sit beside him.
As much as I would love to spend the night like that with you, I don't think that's what you need.
But
it wouldn't be right.
He softly interrupted, lazily rubbing his thumb along the palm of her hand.
I know we're not strangers, but we also haven't seen or spoken to each other in over a decade. I don't think sex is exactly what you need right now.
The small snort was her first response before she decided to use her words. If you were a stranger, I wouldn't have even suggested it. I feel safe with you, Jace. I always have. Life has been so depressing and lonely for the last few months. That's why I started seeing a therapist. I wasn't handling my grief well, and I knew if I didn't get proactive about my mental health, that it would be a downward spiral. Spending time with you today is the first time I've felt like myself in a long time. She edged closer to him. Didn't you just ever need to feel close to someone?
I have. And I'm still right here for you to be close to. But I swear, I'm trying to be the good guy here and not do something you might regret.
Kelsey was already shaking her head. I could never regret sleeping with you. I've thought about it for too many damn years. The nervous laugh spoke volumes. I guess I didn't think I'd have to beg or even try to convince you to do it. Suddenly, the urge to be alone was almost overwhelming. She was mortified that she'd let herself make such a bold declaration and had misread the entire situation. But when she went to stand up, Jace's hand held firm. Jace.
Hear me out.
He carefully began.
Stay here with me tonight. Talk to me about anything and everything. We'll curl up in the bed and hold each other while we get caught up on our lives. At some point, we'll inevitably fall asleep. And then tomorrow night, we'll come right back here and sit on this couch and decide if we're going to take things into a sexier territory. What do you say?
Honestly, she wished he were stripping her bare because he couldn't wait to make love to her. At least that's what the rejected and embarrassed part of her was thinking. The logical part knew he was right. She'd been overly emotional lately, and he was the first person she really wanted to be with. Sighing, she nodded. Maybe you're right. But now I feel a bit foolish. After all, He silenced her with a kiss, and it was a little on the chaste side, but still enough to make her melt against him. When he lifted his head, he stood and brought her back to her feet.
Come on. Let's get comfortable inside. Then I want to hear all about your life, and we'll talk about whatever you'd like.
I'd like to talk about what's on the TV, but there aren't any here, so... They both laughed softly as they walked into the bedroom. Jace kicked off his shoes and sat down on the bed. Kelsey did the same and joined him. Then he wrapped her in his arms, planted a kiss on her forehead, and whispered,
Tell me about where you went to college.
It was a weird way to start the conversation, but it was perfect. For hours, they shared stories about their different life experiences, and at some point, Kelsey fell asleep. And it was the best sleep she'd had in months. 4.
I guess we're staying in the good part of the resort,
Jace murmured, after he and Kelsey wandered down a path that led to about a dozen abandoned cabins that were surrounded by overgrown weeds.
They've done a good job of keeping this part hidden from guests, but it's kind of sad seeing so much disrepair.
Didn't Walker's family usually stay over here? Kelsey gripped his hand as they got closer to one of them. How could they let it get like this?
Walker's never said anything about it. Anytime we bring up those summers, it's to talk about the past. Never what the place is like now. If I had to guess, I'd have to say that it just became too much for his grandparents.
And the family. Such a shame. He was about to step onto the porch when he saw the broken and rotted wood.
I don't think we should disturb this. For all we know, we're trespassing right now.
Most of the time, that wouldn't bother him, but there was no way he was going to risk Kelsey getting hurt.
Come on, let's go and see what kind of shape the boathouse is in.
Are we really going to try the paddle boats? Or do we need to go put on our bathing suits first? She teased.
Well, if our history is any indication, we should probably go change,
he replied with a laugh.
However, paddling seems a bit more our speed. It was the rowing that got us in trouble with the canoes.
Pulling her close, Jace slid his arm around her waist.
What do you say? Are you feeling daring?
I'm not sure. The thing was, he knew she was teasing. Kelsey was probably the most fearless person he'd ever known, and last night confirmed it. After listening to her talk about the struggles she'd overcome, between losing her father, her challenging career as a social worker, and then the loss of her mother, it was amazing she could still find anything to smile about. Jace had marveled at her resilience, but he could also tell she was putting on a brave face. Coming back to the place where she had nothing but great memories, to do something so devastatingly emotional, was taking its toll. That's why he was determined to do whatever he could to help her. Last night, she had quite literally shocked the hell out of him with her proposition. If he were a different kind of guy, he might have taken her up on it. God knows it would have been amazing, and a great way to forget about the world for a while. But he couldn't take advantage of her like that. No matter how well they had known each other when they were growing up, The fact was that they were different people now. It was important for him to know that she wanted to be with him because she wanted him specifically, not just someone to sleep with so she didn't have to be alone. "What time are we supposed to meet your parents for bingo?"
We're not meeting them for bingo. I mean, come on. We're old. We're not bingo old."
Beside him, she laughed, and it was the sweetest sound. "I know we're not, but it seemed like they were looking forward to spending time with you. The last thing I want to do is get in the way of you having time with your family."
"Kelsey, I talk to my parents several times a week. I call my grandparents every Sunday. It's not like they never talk to me."
"That's not the same as seeing you and spending time with you. So, bingo's at 3, right?" He groaned. Walking around the bend in the path, he noted more abandoned buildings.
"Is that where the indoor archery was?"
They stopped and stared out at the overgrown field and the rundown building in the distance. "I think so. Didn't it also have a basketball court in there?" Nodding, he replied,
"Definitely. And an indoor badminton court. We used to run wild in there on the rainy days."
"This was where we hung out while all the adults were up at the lodge playing cards, doing arts and crafts, and all the quiet activities."
"Like bingo?"
And that's when he realized they were adults now and were going to end up in the lodge doing the quiet activities, and groaned again. "Oh, stop. I'll be right there with you. Then we'll all go to dinner. Your grandfather wants to go to that Italian place in town."
"How do you even know that? I thought we were just eating at the lodge again."
"Jace, he must have mentioned wanting lasagna and how great that restaurant in town was about 5 times.
"Gramps says a lot of things,"
he reasoned.
"Besides, I was too busy listening to my mother go on about all the romantic activities there still were for young people around here. In case you haven't noticed, she's kind of excited about you and I spending time together."
"Aw." They were coming up on the playground again, but there was a group of kids running around, so he couldn't pull her in for a kiss in their spot. Instead, he pulled her over to the big red oak tree and kissed her.
"And in case you haven't noticed, I'm kind of excited about spending time with you too."
Her smile was one of pure delight as she playfully grabbed the front of his t-shirt and pulled him in close. "Kiss me again," she whispered.
"My pleasure."
Last night, he had kept his kisses on the tame side so they wouldn't get too carried away. But right now, he kissed her with all the pent-up emotion he'd been feeling. Sleeping with Kelsey in his bed, in his arms and all tangled up with him, had been the sweetest form of torture. And right now, he needed to show her she was sexy and desirable. It was crazy how much he wanted her. The fact that it had been less than 48 hours was messing with him. But did that really matter? They had practically grown up together. They were far from strangers. But she hummed seductively as she moved against him, and Jace was lost. Maybe they could skip the paddle boats. They could definitely skip bingo. There was no reason they couldn't just go back to his cabin right now and do all the things they were both thinking. This time, Kelsey was the one to break the kiss. She was breathless and looking a little dazed, and more beautiful than any woman had the right to. "Wow," she said, as her hand smoothed over his chest. "That was nice."
"Nice? Just nice? I must be losing my touch."
"Jace Nash, you're not losing anything," she quietly scolded. "And it was more than nice. But we're 10 feet away from a playground full of kids. I was going for casual." Grinning, he said,
"So what I'm hearing is that I'm very sexy and an excellent kisser, And you wouldn't mind me kissing you again.
Her laugh was sweet and lyrical. I think we both know I wouldn't mind that one bit. He heard what she was saying, but he sensed there was also something she wasn't saying.
But
later. You were right last night. It was nice to spend the time getting reacquainted. And today it's been fun to just explore the resort and spend time with your family. But maybe tonight we can see about you reminding me of how good your kissing skills are.
Sweetheart, you're on.
Being on the paddle boats was fun and thankfully uneventful. Bingo would have been boring, but Jace got incredibly competitive, and it was borderline hysterical. Dinner at the Italian restaurant in town had been loud and boisterous, and everything a meal with your family should be. And while Kelsey had enjoyed herself, and she truly loved Jace's family, it made her miss her own. Now, as they were slowly strolling back to the cabins, she hated how melancholy she was feeling.
You okay?
He softly asked. Mm-hmm.
You've been quiet ever since we got back here to the resort.
For a few moments, he let that statement just hang there.
I get it, you know. This is a hard trip for you. And while I'm sure having distractions is great, some of them can also be painful reminders of what we've lost.
How was it that this man knew her so well, that he could always tell what was on her mind? It had always been that way, even all the way back when they were kids. Back then, she never gave it much thought. But now, it was both a blessing and a curse. At least, that's how it felt. After quietly sighing, she nodded. I kept thinking how much Mom would have loved catching up with everyone tonight. One of her favorite things was going out and enjoying good food with friends. She used to love trying new places and surrounding herself with people who made her laugh and smile, so this would have been a perfect night to her. Giving her hand a gentle squeeze, he replied,
Then it's something you should do to honor her memory. You know she'd hate it if she thought you were sad when everyone around you was having a good time.
Maybe. But sometimes it's just hard. They walked in companionable silence as the cabins came into view. His family had gone to their cabin about an hour ago, but she and Jace had stayed behind at the lodge and listened to the jazz trio that was playing in the bar. Honestly, it had been a wonderful evening, and she hated how she was letting herself get sad. Again. And Jace was right about her mom hating it for her, too. Now it was her turn to squeeze his hand. Okay, I'm done focusing on things I can't change. From this moment on, I'm here to enjoy myself and the place that holds nothing but great memories for me. He lazily nudged her shoulder.
For what it's worth, I think that's a good idea. And I don't want you to feel pressured to hang out with me and my family. I know it all just sort of fell into place yesterday and today, but if there's something you already had planned, I don't want to stand in your way.
Are you kidding me? She asked, followed by a small laugh. You are saving me from myself. I made the decision to come here to the resort without an actual plan. Honestly, I should have just come up for the day, scattered Mom's ashes, and left. But for some reason, I booked our usual vacation. My therapist said it was a good idea, and I felt like I could handle it, so really, I should be the one saying you shouldn't feel pressured to hang out with me. Obviously, your trip was well planned with your family for your grandparents' anniversary. I'm just like some kind of intruder who's tagging along. Jace came to an abrupt stop and hauled her close. Even in the moonlight, she could see the fierce expression on his face.
First, you are not an intruder,"
he stated gruffly.
"We have known each other since we were 5 years old, Kelsey. Hell, you've spent more time with my family than most of my relatives. And as for tagging along, do you not get how much we want you with us? How much I want you with us? With me?"
"Jace, Strong hands gripped her shoulders, giving her a slight shake.
"Kelsey, do you have any idea how much I regret the way things ended between us? How many times I've kicked myself for not coming back here and seeing you, or—"
Muttering a curse, he released her, immediately raking a hand through his hair.
"I should have called you. I should have let you know how much you meant to me."
As much as she appreciated what he was saying, she couldn't let him take all the blame. "I could have called too. This wasn't a one-way relationship," she countered. "We used to call and text, and then we didn't. We're both to blame here." His hands were back on her.
"Don't you think it's fate that we're both back here at the same time? I mean, what are the odds of that? This place is closing. Neither of us have been here in years, and we both show up on the same day?"
Her heart was racing as she nodded. I thought so too, but I've been consumed with so many other things that I was almost afraid to let myself think too deeply about it." She hungrily took in the sight of him, the dark hair, the stubbled jaw, and the lips that she desperately wanted to kiss. "So much of my life lately has been about either sadness or survival that I can't seem to let myself believe that something good is possible." His expression softened.
"I can't even imagine how hard things have been for you. But I am promising you, right here, right now, that while we're here together, everything's going to be amazing."
She didn't mean to roll her eyes, but she did. A little. "You can't promise that." Nodding, he leaned in, resting his forehead on hers.
"Challenge accepted."
"That wasn't a challenge," she said, unable to hide her amusement. "I'm just saying—"
"And I'm just saying," he countered, "I'm a firm believer in the power of positive thinking."
Placing a kiss on the tip of her nose, he added,
"And I'm positive that we are going to have an amazing vacation together."
"I want to believe that."
"Then do it. Believe it."
Taking her hand, they continued walking until they reached his cabin.
"We can start on the amazing right now. Last night, it was pure torture to be the good guy and keep my hands to myself."
"No one asked you to. If memory serves—" Placing a finger over her lips, he silenced her.
"We both know it was the right thing to do. Tonight, on the other hand, I'm a little more open-minded."
His hand caressed her cheek before smoothing over her jaw, along her throat, and down her arm. It was the barest of touches, and yet it felt much more powerful.
"What do you say? Would you like to join me inside, or—"
She was already shaking her head. "No, or—" she whispered, before swallowing hard. "I wanted you last night, and I still want you." Boldly, Kelsey raked her hand through his hair. "I've always wanted you." His sharp intake of breath was his only reaction before he turned and quickly opened the cabin door and tugged her in behind him. The door slammed shut, and Jace pulled her into his arms, instantly claiming her lips. Kelsey wrapped her arms around him and pressed her body as close to his as possible. And after that, she was done thinking and talking. She wanted to feel alive. She wanted to feel something other than sadness. Last night, Jace thought she only wanted sex. But she didn't. What she wanted was intimacy. To be touched, held, looked at, seen as a desirable woman. She wanted someone to smile at her, laugh with her, someone who made her feel safe and warm. But more than anything, she wanted to feel like someone really understood her. She wanted it so much, it was more like a craving. But tonight, it was all of those things, plus sex. Jace Nash was a man she felt safe with, but he was also a man she felt a deep connection with. After years of friendship and teenage dating, it felt natural for them to be together like this. She'd dreamed about it for years, and right now she wanted to experience it for real, and not just in her mind. "Make love to me, Jace," she whispered against his lips. Lazily, he lifted his head and stared down at her.
"Are you sure? Because..."
This time, she was the one to place a finger over his lips to silence him. "I'm very sure. No regrets." But then a thought occurred to her. "Unless this isn't what you..." Pushing her hand aside, he cut off her words with a kiss that bordered on brutal. It was exciting and arousing, and if this was just the beginning, she couldn't wait for what was going to happen next. His hands were everywhere. His lips were wildly sensual, and everything about him turned her on. The cabin was small, so it was a short and slightly awkward walk to the bedroom. The space was crammed, and neither wanted to break the kiss, so they carefully made their way from the living room until they were beside the bed. Breathlessly, they finally broke apart, and Jace's hands slid under her shirt to cup her breasts. It felt so good that her head fell back as she let out a very throaty sigh before humming, "Yes." The next thing she knew, they were on the bed, with Jace's body covering hers. It was a gloriously satisfying feeling, the weight of him settling against her. So many thoughts were racing through her head. She was happy, turned on, giddy, nervous. It was total sensory overload, but she decided to simply hold on and enjoy the ride. If they were going to have the next week together and have this fling, then she was going to savor every moment. Every touch, every kiss, every sigh. She would take it all and commit it to memory, so when they went their separate ways and back to their regular lives, she could remember it all. Bracing himself above her, he studied her face.
"You are so beautiful, Kelsey. I always thought that. But the woman you've become simply takes my breath away."
She could feel herself blush even as she fought the urge to squirm. Before she could comment or even properly think of something to say, he was kissing her again. And this time it was deeply erotic and sensual, and she knew there weren't any words necessary. After years of thinking about him and going through all of the what-if scenarios, she was finally going to find out. Wrapping herself around him, Kelsey gave herself over to the moment and was confident that this was exactly what she wanted and needed, and she was going to love the hell out of it. 5. The next morning, Jace cradled the steaming mug of coffee in his hands as he watched Kelsey walk across the path to her cabin. When she reached her front porch, she turned and gave him a shy smile and wave before going inside. and like a lovesick fool, he stared at the closed door for far longer than was necessary. After several minutes, he realized he was being weird and turned to go back into his own cabin. The space wasn't conducive to pacing, which he felt like doing, so he forced himself to sit on the sofa and relax. That lasted for less than a minute. Standing, he went and stood in the bedroom doorway and looked at the messy bed and remembered how thoroughly they had messed it up last night and again this morning. Kelsey Brooks, the girl who stole his heart as a teen, had rocked his world as an adult. He meant what he said last night, that it had to be fate and the universe bringing them together again after all these years. Unfortunately, he just didn't know what it would mean when this vacation was over. Jace wasn't someone who thought about or, well, dreamed about the future. The future was going to be what it was going to be. But if he was the type to think and dream, he'd want to bring Kelsey home with him and take care of her. From everything she'd shared with him, her job was stressful, taking care of her mother before she passed away was stressful, and now she was struggling with her grief and seeing a therapist. Deep down, he knew what she needed. A fresh start, someplace completely new and different from her life up in Rochester. She'd already mentioned the possibility of moving, but would she consider moving closer to him? Possibly moving in with him? Raleigh wasn't in her top 3 choices of new locations, but maybe it could be? Groaning, his head lolled back. It is far too early in the morning and too soon to be thinking like this. But was it? The fact was, this was day 3 of his vacation, and he was going to be here for another week, and that was it. There was no way he could extend his trip because he had work commitments. Could he convince Kelsey to come home with him and see if Raleigh was someplace she wanted to live? Or if he was someone she wanted to live with? There was a very real possibility that she'd agree to a visit without committing to an actual move, and he supposed that was the smart way to do things. Stop creating scenarios and arguments and imagining what Kelsey will or won't do. He quietly chided himself. It's day freaking 3. Chill out. And that's the attitude he took while finishing his coffee and then showering and getting ready for the day. Fortunately, his family made it easy for him to focus on everything but his personal life because they were in total vacation mode. As soon as he stepped out of his cabin and spotted his grandfather wearing his bathing suit, a sun shirt, and fishing hat, Jace knew today was going to be all about taking advantage of the resort amenities, even if some of them weren't exactly a good idea. "We're going fishing!" his grandfather called out, even though Jace was less than 10 feet away. "All of us. We rented the big boat, and it comes with lunch for everyone. Kelsey's coming too, right?" Walking over, he nodded. "I'll have to ask her, but I'm sure she'll love it." Pausing, he noticed all the sunscreen on his grandfather's face. When did we decide to do this?" "This morning. Of course, it's all catch and release, but remember how much you used to love fishing when you were a boy?" Another nod. "I do. I definitely do. Remember the summer I caught that trout and set the resort record? There used to be a plaque with my name on it up at the lodge somewhere," he said with a smile. "Do you think it's still there?" Chuckling, his grandfather shook his head. "Maybe. There are a lot of plaques up at the lodge along the main hallway. You should check it out after today's trip, or ask our fishing guide." "How long is the excursion?" 4 hours. We need to be down at the dock at 10, so that's just... Looking down at his watch, Jace chuckled. 20 minutes. Is everyone else ready?" His grandfather shrugged. "Beats me. I got out of there because your grandmother told me I was in the way." Pausing, he gave Jace a cursory look. "You might want to change into a bathing suit, too. You know, just in case you catch another record-breaking fish and end up getting wet."
I'll keep that in mind. But first, I'm going to go and let Kelsey know what we're doing today.
Well, hurry! We've only got 20 minutes and it's going to take almost all that time to get down to the dock. Chase could actually see the dock from where they were standing, but he kept that observation to himself.
I'll be fast, Gramps. Don't worry.
Turning, he jogged next door to Kelsey's cabin, and she opened the door before he had a chance to knock. She was already wearing her bathing suit with a pair of shorts and a very sassy grin. I heard the entire conversation, she told him with amusement. I was in the middle of getting dressed and quickly changed gears. Unable to help himself, he hauled her in close and gave her a quick but thorough kiss.
That's because you're amazing,
he murmured huskily against her lips.
And the best for agreeing to come with us on what is sure to be a very dull boat ride.
Pulling back slightly, she shook her head. Are you kidding? Any day sitting out on a boat is better than just sitting around doing nothing. Besides, I hear there's going to be lunch provided. Plus, your grandmother is going to teach me how to crochet. I'm sure she's going to bring something to do with her on the boat. I don't see her wanting to fish.
You've got that right. My mom's not into it either.
Frowning, he glanced over to where his grandfather was standing, and then back at Kelsey.
I wonder what she's going to do out on the boat.
Read. Yesterday she was telling me about all the books she brought with her and how she was looking forward to having some quiet time to read. If I had to guess, that's going to be her activity of choice.
Why are we even renting a boat then? I mean, Dad, Gramps, and I could have done this just the three of us. Now I feel bad dragging you along.
Rolling her eyes, she gave him a playful shove before turning and walking back into the cabin to gather her things. You're not dragging me. I'm looking forward to it. Slinging a canvas tote over her shoulder, she said, and I might even do some fishing. I haven't done it in years, so I might throw out a line or two. We'll see.
Or learn to crochet?
Shrugging, she picked up the big floppy hat she had worn that first day and plopped it on her head. Or read. I'll see what kind of mood I'm in. There's no need to make rigid plans. Besides, it's only for 4 hours. Do you know what they have planned for after that?
God only knows,
he mumbled.
Can I help you with anything?
She shook her head. Nope, I've got it. Why don't you go change? Because, according to your grandfather, it's a long walk down to the dock. That made him laugh.
It's going to be a long day.
Kissing her one more time, he forced himself to head for the door.
I'll meet you outside in 5 minutes.
Sounds good. As soon as Jace stepped outside, he found his family standing there waiting for him.
5 minutes,
he said, before jogging across to his cabin. Inside, he quickly changed and wondered if he was supposed to bring anything else, but ultimately realized he didn't have anything else that would be necessary for a fishing excursion. Grabbing a baseball hat and sunglasses, he stepped back outside and found Kelsey standing and chatting with everyone. Finally, his grandmother said, before giving him a hug and a loud, smacking kiss. We were afraid you were going to make us miss the boat. Chuckling, he just shook his head, because there was no way to win this argument.
Sorry,
he said, kissing her cheek.
I can run ahead and make sure they hold the boat if you're worried.
Nonsense, she countered. If that boat captain knows what's good for him, he'll wait. There wasn't a doubt in his mind that she was speaking the truth. No one said no to his grandmother. Ever. How about we stop talking about it and start walking? His grandfather suggested, even as he began to walk away. Jace took Kelsey's hand and stayed back for a moment, so his parents and grandparents could start walking. And we're staying in the back because
we can keep pace,
he told her.
Trust me, if we were in front, we'd be there already and then have to deal with a ton of comments about us racing rather than walking.
Beside him, she laughed softly. Then I guess we are going to enjoy a leisurely stroll. Resting her head on his arm as they walked, she asked, Do you think anyone saw me leaving your cabin this morning? Good question. Even though she asked in a near whisper, he wasn't completely sure no one heard. Slowing his steps a little to put more space between them and his family, he replied,
I want to say no because no one's brought it up, but I also know how early they all get up, so it's possible? Maybe?
Straightening, she nodded. Makes sense. Are you okay with them knowing? Now it was his turn to laugh.
I mean, I'm not looking forward to discussing my sex life with my parents or my grandparents, but I'm not ashamed of us spending the night together. It's no one's business but ours. If they want to say anything, that's what I'm going to tell them. I don't want them embarrassing you either.
I'm fine, and I can totally handle myself if anyone says anything, so don't worry, she assured him, squeezing his hand. Personally, I'll be surprised if they don't bring it up.
Now I wish my cabin wasn't right across from theirs.
We're all adults, Jace. And really, it's not like it's going to be a shock to anyone. They've all been dropping hints and gushing about how happy they are that we're spending so much time together. For all we know, there will be strawberries and champagne waiting for us later on.
Oh, God,
he groaned.
Don't even put that idea out in the universe.
All I'm saying is while it would be nice to have a little more privacy, it's also not the end of the world that we don't. This is a vacation fling. Lots of people have them. It's just a bonus that we've known each other for so long.
Vacation fling. Damn. That stung.
He was about to comment on it when his mother looked at them over her shoulder and smiled. I figured the two of you didn't have time for breakfast this morning, so I went up to the lodge and grabbed you a couple of muffins and some fruit.
Okay, he murmured before calling out, Thanks, Mom.
She looked at them again. No worries. And if either of you need to nap instead of fishing, since I'm sure you didn't get much sleep last night, you go right ahead. We're all fine with it. Hanging his head, Jace groaned again while Kelsey laughed. Thanks, Mrs. Nash, she called out. A nap on the boat sounds heavenly.
Don't encourage her,
he whispered. She simply shrugged. I told you, it's not a big deal. Plus, now I can nap without anyone stopping me.
Good point.
She didn't nap. She didn't fish either. What she did do was learn to crochet while talking about books and enjoying stories about her mom. That was a bonus perk to hanging out with the Nash family. They all knew Kelsey's family from years of vacationing next to each other at the resort. Your mother and I used to share books, Jace's mom, Lori, told her. It didn't happen right away, but after a few years of being neighbors here, we realized we were both avid readers. At the end of one of those early summers, we agreed that the next summer, we'd bring a bag of the books we loved the most that we read over the course of the year. That started a tradition. I never had to bring books with me because I always knew your mom would have a bag of them waiting for me. Oh, I never knew that, Kelsey said with a smile, because it was a nice memory. Mom was always reading at home. She had e-readers and hardcover and paperback books. There was always something to read in her purse. Oh, I'm the same, Lori replied. My TBR list is a mile long, and I'm always adding to it. What do you like to read the most? I know my mom was a big fan of women's fiction and thrillers. Me too! That's why we were so compatible and could share books. Of course, I also enjoy a good romance, too. I don't like it too spicy, but I definitely love something that gives me all the feels. I love a good spicy romance, Jace's grandmother chimed in, shocking them both. Particularly the historical ones. I've been reading them for years. The spicier, the better. How do you think Sean and I have kept the spark alive after all these years? Woo! Your father loves when he finds me reading, if you know what I mean. She winked hard before cackling with laughter. What? Mom, what the heck? Lori cried. I don't want to know that. Sheesh! Don't be such a prude, Lori. There's nothing wrong with reading sexy things or having a healthy sex life. Kelsey had no idea Grandma Eleanor was quite this sassy, but she was loving the hell out of the entire exchange. Lori looked around frantically before whispering, Okay, but we don't need to, talk about it. I don't want to think about you and Dad and anything sexy. That just made Eleanor laugh even more. Sweetheart, we're all adults here, and we've all had sex. Hell, I think Jace and Kelsey did just last night. Gasping so hard she started to choke, Kelsey felt her entire face heat. Jace immediately walked over and crouched down beside her, patting her back. Are you okay? He asked, concern lacing his voice. She's fine, Eleanor assured him. I just mentioned how we all know the two of you had sex last night. And that caused Kelsey to cough even harder. So this is you handling yourself? He murmured for her ears only. Swallowing hard, she nodded before taking several calming breaths. I'm fine. Really. Facing his mother and grandmother, she smiled. I guess I should have been more prepared for that, huh? Lori reached over and squeezed her hand. I'm so sorry for Mom embarrassing you. Hell, she embarrassed me. You all embarrass too easily, Eleanor said with amusement. I thought we could talk a little more about it. No one wants to talk to you about their sex life, Mom. I meant the spicy books, Eleanor replied primly. Get your mind out of the gutter, Lori. They all groaned. On that note, I'm going back to my rod, Jace said, and Kelsey caught him frowning when his grandmother snickered. Shifting in her seat, Kelsey focused on the scarf she was currently trying to crochet. Personal spiciness aside, she began, I enjoy reading too. I'm not as voracious as my mom was, but I probably read a book a week, and I definitely lean more towards women's fiction and romance. Did you share books with your mom? Lori asked. Nodding, she continued to work. All the time. Toward the end, she couldn't even hold a book on her own or an e-reader, so I used to read to her. We were going through a series where it was a family saga, but each book focused on an individual couple. It was 11 books, and we finished that last one the week before she passed. Tears stung her eyes, and she was thankful for the sunglasses. I have that complete series now on a bookshelf in my apartment, and it makes me smile whenever I see it. They were all quiet for a moment before Lori put down the book that she was reading and looked at her again. Can I ask you something? Of course. You can tell me to mind my own business. Pfft, like you'll listen, Eleanor mumbled. Lori shot her mother a hard glare before returning her attention to Kelsey. I was just curious if you were planning on staying in Rochester. With your parents both being gone, I wasn't sure if you were looking to maybe move and start fresh someplace new. She paused. Like I said, you can tell me it's none of my business and I won't be offended. You're fine, Mrs. Nash, really. So many people have asked me that exact question, and to be honest, I really like the idea of a fresh start. But I also feel guilty about it. Why? Because it's like I'm abandoning my whole life. The places I grew up, all the memories my family made. It feels weird to think about just leaving it all behind. She quickly swiped away some stray tears and prayed no one noticed. My parents were born and raised in Ireland, Eleanor said, as she continued to crochet the blanket she was working on. They moved to America the week after they got married.
My grandparents didn't want them to go, but my parents felt like it was something they desperately wanted to do. So, they left. It was hard and a lot of work, and my mother cried all the time in that first year. But eventually they settled in, made a home, started a family. Putting her crocheting needles down, she looked over at Kelsey. Your memories are always with you, Kelsey. You might not be able to walk to the park you used to play in, or go to the restaurant your mother or father loved, but they're only a car ride or plane ride away. She shrugged. You know they wouldn't want you to stay there just because of the memories. She nodded, but couldn't bring herself to look away from her sad and crooked little scarf. Amazing things can happen when you take a risk, a leap of faith, Eleanor went on. If my parents hadn't moved, I never would have met my husband. We never would have had Lori. She never would have met Paul. They wouldn't have had Jace. Pausing, she smiled. You see all the things that never would have happened if two people didn't take that leap of faith and decide to start fresh, someplace new. Another nod. I do. I really do. But I'm not even sure where I'd want to go. The possibilities are endless, it seems. Although, I picked a few places that interest me, but I don't know. What about your friends? Lori asked. Have any of them moved away to a place you'd be interested in? It's always nice if there's a familiar face waiting when you make a move. Or maybe I should say it makes things a little easier. Nonsense. My parents didn't know anyone. And you said Grandma cried every day, Lori reminded her. Why not encourage Kelsey to start where there might be something familiar? I understand that, but she should follow her heart and go where that leads her. At that moment, she looked over at Jace. That's where my heart is leading me. It was a random thought, and she knew it was because they made love last night. It was everything she had dreamed it would be and more. He was so damn sexy and attentive, and he had thoroughly worn her out, only to wake up and do it all over again. So while it was a nice thought, she knew it was only because they were in the middle of this vacation fling. Once it was flung and they went back to their regular lives, she was fairly certain Jace wouldn't want her following him across the country and moving into his neighborhood. God, how awkward would that be? Very, she told herself. Very, very awkward. Wouldn't it? 6. After coming back from fishing, they trekked up to the lodge and enjoyed ice cream sundaes at the afternoon social hour. Dinner was going to be back up at the lodge, and the theme of the night was a Texas barbecue. Jace had missed the memo about wearing cowboy hats and boots, thank God, and found it amusing when his family stepped out of their cabin looking like something out of a rodeo catalog. "Oh, Jace," his mother said with a frown, "why didn't you dress up?" "Honestly, Mom, I don't remember you giving me the costume itinerary." "Then you ignored my emails, because I know I sent you a list of all the themed nights." She sighed. "Now you're just going to look silly being the only one not dressed up for the barbecue." "I don't think jeans, checkered shirts, and cowboy hats really mean dressed up, Mom. It's going to be fine, trust me." Luckily, Kelsey chose that moment to come out of her cabin, and she wasn't dressed up like a cowgirl. "Oh, wow, you guys all look great." She walked over to Jace and grinned. "Were we supposed to dress up?" "Do you have a cowboy hat and boots with you?" he teased. I'm starving," his grandfather called out. "Now let's go. This is the last hoedown this place is ever going to see, and I don't want to miss it."
Like they had earlier, the two of them followed behind their group. Smiling down at Kelsey, he said,
"You look beautiful tonight."
She had on a baby blue sundress with thin straps. Her skin was lightly golden from being out on the boat, and he couldn't wait to touch her all over later. "Thank you. I know we're just going up to the lodge, but I always wore a dress when we went to dinner whenever we were here. It's kind of tradition." She laughed softly. And for full disclosure, I knew that dressing up for all the themes was encouraged, and I chose to ignore it. Wrapping his arm around her as they walked, he said,
"A woman after my own heart. I love it. Such a rebel."
Her arm went around his waist as they continued their stroll. It makes me sad that this is the last hoedown. I would love to know why Walker and his family aren't taking the place over. Looking up at him, he could see the sadness in her eyes. "Do you feel close enough to him that you could call and ask?"
I mean, I could, but I'm not sure what good it would do. There's obviously got to be a reason. For all we know, they want the cash that selling the property would bring in. And really, we can't fault them for it.
"I can," she murmured. "This place means so much to so many people, and it just needs a little love. What if they got investors and a bunch of people to go over and revamp the place? What if it was updated and offered a little more, adventure activities, water skiing, zip lines, TV and Wi-Fi?" Laughing, she shook her head. "There's just so much potential here, and every time I think of this place going away, it breaks my heart." Hugging her close, he totally understood how she felt. "Although, earlier today, your grandmother reminded me of how our memories are always with us. Whether this place is here or not, I'm always going to remember it. I just hate the thought of never being able to return to it." Her soft sigh spoke volumes.
I know. I hadn't thought of this place in years, but now knowing we can't ever come back, yeah, it sucks.
I would totally invest in this place. When my dad passed, I got his life insurance, and it was for a lot more than I ever imagined. The same with my mom. They wanted to make sure I was well taken care of. So if Walker wanted to do something, like get a team of investors to be a part of keeping Lakeview Harbor Resort alive, I'd totally be in.
Kels, come on. Granted, I have no idea how much your parents left you, and I don't want to know because it's none of my business. But why? I get being nostalgic, but why is this place so important to you?
It was a simple enough question, but he wasn't prepared for her answer. "It's the last place my family was whole," she said quietly. "It's the last place we were happy. At least, it's the last place I thought we were happy. It's the place I'm going to leave my mother when I scatter her ashes." Beside him, she stopped walking. "It's where I first met you." Her eyes were brimming with unshed tears.
Kelsey.
"I know it's crazy, but this place is an integral part of my life, Jace. I know I have my memories here in my heart, but I'm always going to want to go to the playground, to the spot where we shared our first kiss, or sleep in the cabin with the loft like I did when I was a kid. I'm going to want to precariously perch on one of the canoes and pray I don't tip it." Her lips trembled as her hand rested over his heart. "And I'm always going to want to go back to the cabin where we first made love." Reaching up, he gently caressed her cheek, but words completely eluded him. "This isn't just a place my family came to vacation. This place is part of my family."
I'll call Walker after dinner. I promise.
Her voice was barely a whisper when she said, "Thank you." And with that, they started walking again and caught up with his family. Neither said another word, but seemed content to listen to his grandparents playfully argue over what his grandfather should and shouldn't be eating because of his cholesterol, and whether his grandmother should dance at the hoedown because of her osteoarthritis in her hip. Riveting conversation, he thought. But right now, it was exactly the kind of mindless banter he needed. His heart ached for Kelsey and everything she'd lost and everything she was clinging to. He couldn't do anything about one, but he could certainly try to do something about the other. Calling Walker wasn't an issue. They talked every now and again. He just wasn't sure his old friend was going to be open to sharing why things were happening the way they were at the Lakeview Harbor Resort. For all he knew, there was some bad blood in the family, or financial distress, or even something scandalous that he didn't want to share. Still, there was only one way to find out. Beside him, he could feel how tense Kelsey was without her uttering a word, and he knew that he needed to make the call sooner rather than later. Pausing in his tracks, he smiled down at her. "Hey, why don't you go ahead with everyone? I think I'll give Walker a call right now." Her eyes went wide. "Really? You'd do that?" He nodded. "I'm not making any promises, but I think you'll be able to enjoy yourself a little more if you know what's going on around here and why." Launching herself into his arms, she held him tight. "Thank you, Jace," she whispered fiercely. "You have no idea how much this means to me." It was on the tip of his tongue to remind her she might not like the outcome, but he figured that wouldn't help anything right now. Instead, he held her close for a moment longer before letting her go. "Go," he said quietly. "I'll catch up as soon as I'm done." "What should I tell everyone?" "Tell them Stopping, he realized he didn't need her to make excuses for him. "Mom, Dad," he called out. "I need to make a business call. I'll meet everyone up at the lodge, okay?" They all nodded and continued to walk. When he met Kelsey's gaze, he saw a myriad of emotions playing in her beautiful eyes. Without a word, she stood up on her tiptoes and kissed him before walking away. Letting out a long breath, Jace pulled out his phone and walked over to one of the benches along the path and sat down. Pulling up Walker's number, he hit send and prayed he wasn't making a mistake. "Holy cow, Jace Nash!" Walker Bradshaw said excitedly when he answered. "To what do I owe the honor?" Laughing softly, Jace shook his head. "Hey, Walker, guess where I am right now? If you're at my front door, you're out of luck. I'm out of town at the moment." "Nope, not at your door. But I am someplace that's possibly like a second home to you." Groaning with amusement, Walker said, "What in the world are you doing at Lakeview Harbor Resort? Of all the places in the world you could be vacationing right now, why there?" "Well, funny story," he began, and then told him about his grandparents' anniversary. "How could I say no, right?" Walker chuckled. "No, you definitely had to be there, but wow, kind of crazy that they still go back year after year." This was his opening. "I heard this is going to be their last, though. Word around the resort is you're closing the doors at the end of the summer." Silence. Crap, did I piss him off? After a long moment, Walker let out a loud sigh. "Yeah, it's been kind of a shit show where the resort is concerned. My grandparents can't handle running it anymore. They're still very active, but it's a lot of work, and they're tired. They've been talking about retiring for the last 5 years, and they're finally doing it. That's awesome for them. I mean, they've obviously worked hard all their lives, and they're entitled to enjoy themselves." "Exactly." But because Jace could already hear the but. Walker laughed again.
But there's been a lot of discussion about closing the place. You're there so you can obviously see how much work it needs. They've let things go for so long, and unfortunately we all stopped going there years ago just because, I don't know, my brothers and I grew up, and so did my cousins. Going to our grandparents' lake resort just wasn't as appealing anymore.
Glancing around, Jace could totally understand that.
They've been approached by real estate developers, and they can make a freaking crap ton of money by selling it. But my grandmother is devastated just thinking about everything being demolished. Have they reached out to other hospitality companies? There have got to be other resorts who could take it over. Not really. The place was great back in its day, but think about it, Jace. Are you having fun there? It's a niche market. Between doing the upgrades just to bring the resort into this century and then expanding everything to make it more appealing to today's vacationers would require way more resources than anyone's willing to invest. What if you had a team of investors?
He carefully suggested.
A team? Like members of my family? Because trust me, no one's shown any interest in taking it on. Not even you? Because you seriously used to love this place. I know we don't talk about it much as of late, but I know how much this place meant to you. Well, yeah, when we were kids. I'm not in any position to take on something like this,
Walker argued lightly. But Jace could tell there wasn't any strong opposition there.
I've thought about it. I'm not going to lie to you, but no one in the family wants to get involved.
After a pause, Jace told him about seeing Kelsey again.
So I was walking to the cabin after I checked in the other day, and someone bumped into me. With the senior citizen crowd that seems to be the primary guest demographic, that's not surprising. It wasn't a senior citizen. It was Kelsey Banks.
There was a second of silence before Walker said,
"No way! How freaking crazy is that?" For a minute I thought I was seeing a mirage,
Jace told him.
But she was definitely real, and we've been, spending time together.
He explained how her mom had recently passed away and why she was there at the resort.
Damn, that's awful. Please send her my condolences. I will, buddy. But here's the thing. She's incredibly attached to the Lakeview Harbor Resort and would seriously be interested in investing in it if it were something you'd consider. Jace, just hear me out, okay? I get that no one in your family is interested. But what if you found other investors and you took over? Well, not like take over, but headed it up and then hired someone to run it. With the right team of people, you could turn this into a place that attracts both a younger demographic and the loyal guests who've been coming here for 20-plus years. I don't know. That sounds like...
He let out a long breath.
Damn, Jace. You have no idea how much I want to say yes, because I've thought about it like 1,000,000 times. But without my family's help... Are you telling me you don't know anyone else who would invest? I know I would, and so would Kelsey.
The thought of investing himself just came to him, but as soon as he said it, he knew it was a no-brainer.
She got a decent amount of money from both of her parents' life insurance, and this is something she'd invest in as a tribute to her family. For all you know, there are others who might not want in for the same reason, but they'd want in just the same. Hell, if you put it out there to Axel, Connor, Milo, and Slater, and whoever else you still keep in touch with, you might not need your family's help. Just think about it.
Another loud sigh.
You have no idea the can of worms you're opening, Nash. We had all just sort of come to grips with letting the place go, and now I've got a lot to think about. And fast.
The bark of laughter was a stalling tactic.
The whole thing sounds overwhelming, and I have no idea the kind of money we'd need or how much would be involved or... Okay, he quickly interrupted. It was all just an idea, Walker. I'm sure if you went to your grandparents and told them what you were thinking, they'd make a deal with you, especially since they don't want to see the place demolished. Maybe this will work out, maybe it won't. I promised Kelsey I'd call you, that's all. Damn, the two of you.
He laughed softly.
You always had a soft spot for her, even before you started dating for the summer. And apparently, I still have a soft spot. Maybe even more. Seriously? It's only been, 3 days? She was the one who got away,
he admitted.
I never forgot her. But I just thought our chance at anything had passed. Running into her here was like fate, and I need to see where it's gonna go. Where do you want it to go?
Good question.
In a perfect world, I'd want to take her home with me to Raleigh and have the life we probably should have had all those years ago, but we're too young and didn't know any better. Wow. Just wow. I don't even know what to say to that. Although, I just can't wrap my head around feeling that way about someone after a handful of days. Walker, Kelsey and I have known each other since we were kids. There's a history there. A history that I screwed up and walked away from. This is our second chance, and I don't want to blow it this time. Then I say go for it. Only you know how you feel, and if you feel like Kelsey's the one, then don't let this slip through your hands a second time. That's what I'm working on. And what about you? What do you think you're going to do? I have to meet everyone up at the lodge for dinner, and Kelsey's going to want to know where we left things.
He explained with a small laugh.
Tell her I'm going to think about it. I can't make any promises because there's a lot to consider, but I like the idea. Do you think that will help put her mind at ease a little?
That made him laugh a little more.
Not as much as you jumping at the idea, but it's a start, and that's all I can ask. Thanks, Walker. I appreciate you reaching out, and I'll be in touch, I promise. Good news or bad, I won't leave you hanging. Thanks.
Hanging up, Jace stood and slid his phone into his pocket. Overall, he felt good about the conversation. He just hoped Kelsey would too. Naked, sweaty, and breathless, Kelsey fell back against the pillows, smiling from ear to ear. "Thank you." Beside her, Jace let out a husky laugh.
I want to say you're welcome, but that was clearly a team effort.
He looked so sexy that she couldn't help but roll onto her side just so she could fully appreciate the magnificence of this man. Her hand smoothed over his chest before resting on his abs. "I wasn't necessarily referring to what we just did," she said softly. "I'm still incredibly thankful that you called Walker earlier." She had been so anxious while waiting for him up at the lodge. The small talk she made with his family felt forced, and she was beyond distracted. By the time they were seated at their table, she couldn't take her eyes off the doorway, practically willing him to walk through it. And when he did, he was smiling, and she'd nearly sagged to the floor with relief.
You gave him something to think about,
Jace had whispered in her ear. Obviously, she'd had a ton of questions, but a hoedown wasn't the place to ask them. So they'd enjoyed the evening, eating, dancing, and laughing. But when Kelsey noticed everyone getting ready to leave, she was more than ready to get Jace alone so she could get some answers. The walk to the cabins had seemed endless. But as soon as they stepped into Jace's, she blurted out, "Tell me what he said." She'd said it with a smile and a laugh, but part of her cringed at how crazy she sounded. It didn't take long for him to tell her everything, and while it gave her hope, it also didn't give her any solid answers.
Kels, you know your parents left you that money so that you wouldn't have to struggle in your life. Are you sure you want to take it and put it all into saving the Lakeview Harbor Resort?
I'm not planning on putting everything they gave me into it, but I am prepared to take at least a quarter of it because I feel very strongly about this. And knowing how much joy this place brought our family over the years, I think my parents would approve. Jace sat down beside her and gave her a boyish grin.
You are amazing. How did I get so lucky to find you again?
She'd rested her forehead against his. Because Lakeview Harbor Resort is magical. She kissed him softly. And it deserves to be saved. Another kiss. After that, she had straddled his lap and seduced the heck out of him to thank him properly. Well, the thanking part was a convenient excuse, but the truth was she'd been wanting to seduce him all day. Once she'd snaked her hands under his shirt, they were done talking. It had been wildly sensual and thoroughly satisfying, and even though she was still breathless, she couldn't wait to do it all again. And they did. When the sun was just starting to rise, Kelsey woke up to Jace kissing his way down her body. It was her new favorite way to wake up. Her hands had raked through his hair as she gave herself over to the pleasure that only he could give. And when they were both thoroughly sated and exhausted, they'd fallen back to sleep, tangled up in each other's arms. The next time she woke up, it was to the smell of freshly brewed coffee, her second favorite thing to wake up to. Slowly, she sat up and smiled. Jace held the mug out to her as he sat back down on the bed. "Good morning."
"Good morning, beautiful,"
he said, his voice low and deep and yummy. After taking a tentative sip of her coffee, she asked, "Good morning. What time is it?"
"It's after 10. Are you hungry?"
Her eyes went wide. "After 10? Oh my goodness, weren't we supposed to meet everyone at the pool? I need to get dressed." Another sip of coffee. "Actually, shower first, then I'll get dressed. Then I can—"
"Kelsey, relax,"
he said, as he gently stopped her from getting up.
"I already texted my mother and said we'd see them tomorrow. I told her we wanted a day to ourselves."
"Oh, Jace, was she upset?" He laughed.
"Are you kidding me? She gave me 2 thumbs-up emojis, 4 smiley faces, several hearts, followed by the emoji with stars for eyes. I think she's thrilled. So we have the entire day to do whatever we want."
Ooh, I like the sound of that. But I'm still going to want to shower and get changed.
"Naturally."
After taking a sip of his own coffee, he repeated his question.
"Are you hungry? I can run up to the lodge and grab some muffins if you'd like, or maybe some fruit."
"Thanks, but I'm not a big breakfast person. I do have some stuff over in my cabin if you're hungry. Cereal, granola bars, fruit, and there are definitely some eggs, bacon, and English muffins." He grinned.
"For someone who's not a big breakfast person, you have an awful lot of breakfast food."
"I'm an overshopper. I plan for everything." After a brief pause, she went on. "Since I had no idea I was going to run into you and your family, I pretty much figured I'd be spending these 2 weeks alone. Most of the time, I don't mind eating by myself, but if I'm being lazy, I figured I'd eat breakfast in the cabin and then wander out and about."
"You want to know something funny? I rarely eat breakfast when I'm home. But when I'm on vacation, I eat it almost every day.
Shaking his head, he added,
Probably because on vacation there are waffles and omelets, while at home there's cereal and oatmeal.
After a dramatic shudder, he winked at her.
Plus, someone else is making it.
Then let's go over to my cabin and I'll make you breakfast, she said, tossing the blankets off. He didn't fight her on it, and after scrambling around to find her clothes from last night, she quickly got dressed.
It's a shame to cover that gorgeous body,
he murmured as he came up behind her, kissing her shoulder. Maybe, but I don't think your family would appreciate seeing us sprinting naked across the path. I don't even want to think about the shocked look on your grandmother's face. Jace instantly stepped back and groaned.
Okay, that was definitely a mood killer. Let's go make breakfast.
Luckily, they made it over to her cabin, fully clothed and without running into anyone. There had been a brief moment after she made the comment about his grandmother that she considered telling him about the conversation she had with her and his mother on the boat, but decided to keep that to herself for now. So, what would you like? Bacon and eggs? Cereal? She asked, pulling ingredients out of the refrigerator.
What are you going to have?
Probably bacon and eggs with an English muffin. Grinning at him, she added, If I'm going to have breakfast, I might as well go big, right? Coming over to her, Jace wrapped his arms around her.
I've said it before, and I'll say it again. You're a woman after my own heart.
Yeah, he had said it before, and it made her heart flutter then just like it was right now. She was after his heart, but it was too soon to say it. Instead, she gave him a quick kiss and stepped over to the small stove. Why don't you make us a couple of fresh cups of coffee while I get things started?
I can do more than make coffee,
he teased. I'm sure you can, but this kitchen is tiny, and it will be easier for me to work alone. 10 minutes is all I'll need. Looking over at him, she quickly explained. The bacon is pre-cooked. Sorry. Chuckling, he put a pot in the mini coffee maker.
No need to apologize. I use that at home all the time.
Almost exactly 10 minutes later, they were sitting down to eat. It felt cozy and intimate, and Kelsey took it to mean they were going to have a great day on their own, which was technically the first time they were going to have a whole day for themselves with no family around. The possibilities were endless.
Thank you,
he said after the first bite.
I was hungrier than I thought.
I know, me too. After a forkful of eggs, she asked, So what should we do today? There's nothing scheduled for us. Nodding, he replied,
I know, crazy, right? There's not a whole lot to do that we haven't done already. This place seriously needs some new activities.
Did you mention that to Walker? You know, all the great things he could add to make this place more appealing to younger people?
Nothing specific,
he said.
But I did mention that he had options to bring this place into this century.
I really hope he does this, she said wistfully. I know it's not going to be a quick fix or happen right away, but I truly believe he can make it happen.
You're putting an awful lot of faith in someone you haven't seen or talked to in a dozen years. I don't want you to get your hopes up and then be disappointed if it doesn't happen.
I know, but thinking about it coming together makes me happy. She shrugged, and I'd rather focus on the positive and be, happy.
Then that's what we'll do.
Reaching over, Jace brought her hand to his lips and kissed it.
Now what are we going to do today?
7. For the next 5 days, Jace could say he was living his best life. He and Kelsey spent every minute together, and he enjoyed getting to know her again. They had so much in common, and it didn't matter if they were talking about food or movies or current events. The conversation just flowed so easily. He was loving it. And her. Yeah. The more time he spent with Kelsey, the more he fell in love with her, It didn't matter that they'd only been together for a week. He knew. Deep down in his soul, he knew that Kelsey Brooks was his forever. He just hadn't had the courage to say anything because he didn't want to freak her out or, even worse, scare her off. The plan was to bide his time. But he only had another 3 days here at Lakeview Harbor Resort. She was staying a few days longer than him, but he had to get back to Raleigh to start on a new project. "It's not polite to keep an old lady waiting," his grandmother said as she walked across the path toward his cabin. He was standing out on the porch and was about to walk over to get her, but she beat him to it. "Sorry, Gram," he said, meeting her halfway and kissing her on the cheek. "I lost track of time." She hooked her arm through his and gently turned them in the direction she wanted to go, which was toward the lake. "I feel like the two of us haven't had a lot of time to visit with everyone around. That's why I orchestrated it so everyone was busy this afternoon except for us. I knew your mother and Kelsey would love to go to the signing at the local bookstore. Your father had been complaining about not getting any time to play pickleball, so I signed him up for the tournament, and your grandfather always wants to take an uninterrupted nap, so I'm letting him. Now, I can finally have some time to have you all to myself. I haven't seen enough of you." "Really?" he asked with amusement. "Because I feel like we've seen each other every day since I arrived." "We have, but it's always with everyone else around. Your grandfather, your parents, Kelsey." She sighed. "Our party is tomorrow night, and all your cousins and aunts and uncles will be coming, so I want to make the most of this afternoon." Squeezing his arm slightly, she added, "I'm worried about you, Jace." "Me? Why?" "You're dragging your feet. Do you need a house to fall on you or something?" she demanded. "I have no idea." "The perfect girl reappears in your life, and you're going to let her get away again," she said with disdain. "We all can see that she's crazy about you, and you're crazy about her, and yet you're not making any plans for after this trip." Ah, okay. This he could handle. "Gram, I'm just trying to—" "Remember the day on the boat," she interrupted. "Your mother and I asked Kelsey what her plans were. Was she planning on staying in Rochester or maybe starting someplace fresh?" He nodded. "Okay, I had that conversation with her as well." "She says she feels guilty about moving away, even though it's something she'd like to do." Looking up at him, she continued, "I told her about my parents and how they moved to America from Ireland, and how sometimes you have to just take a leap of faith." Jace nodded again, unsure if he should say anything. "I told her, your memories are always with you, Kelsey," she went on, "and then I explained how she might not be able to walk to the park she used to play in, or go to a restaurant her mother or father loved. But those places are only a car ride or plane ride away. Then I finished with how they wouldn't want her to stay there just because of the memories." "That all makes sense, Gram," he reasoned. "You made some great points." "I know," she said with a very satisfied smile. "Sometimes taking that first step is the hardest part. But I tried to make her see that amazing things can happen when you take a risk. If my parents hadn't moved, I never would have met your grandfather. We never would have had your mother. She never would have met your father, and then they wouldn't have had you. And that would be a real shame."
"I have to agree."
Pausing, she smiled up at him. "You see all the things that never would have happened if two people didn't take that leap of faith, and decide to start fresh someplace new? That is the exact question I asked Kelsey. Now he was truly invested in the story.
And what did she say?
She shrugged. She said she wasn't sure where she would go, but I said she should follow her heart and go where it leads her.
And?
She frowned. And what? She didn't make a decision right there on the spot. That's where you come in.
Graham.
Just hear me out. She held up her hand to stop him from saying anything else. You obviously have feelings for Kelsey, and she has feelings for you. You're not strangers, and it seems like you get along very well with each other.
We do, but...
What are you waiting for? Ask her to come to Raleigh. Gah! It's so simple.
It's really not, Graham.
He began carefully.
I can't just ask Kelsey to uproot her entire life and move hundreds of miles away based on a 10-day vacation.
You could stay the 2 weeks. He gave her a patient smile.
Believe me, I would love for Kelsey to move to Raleigh, but the time has to be right. I'm working on it. I promise. Humph.
Used to his grandmother's attitude, Jace simply got them walking again.
It's a very big decision, and I don't want her to feel pressured to say yes. I'm also afraid I'll scare her off if I make such a big proposal after less than 2 weeks of being together.
Your grandfather and I got married after only knowing each other for 3 weeks. Did you know that? His eyes went wide.
Seriously? 3 weeks? And your parents allowed that?
Eleanor laughed softly. Sweetheart, back in those days you didn't do long engagements, and you didn't live together before you were married. My family was poor, and I think they were relieved to have one less mouth to feed, so, yes, they allowed it. And now look at us. It's our 55th wedding anniversary tomorrow. Your grandfather wasn't afraid he was going to scare me off. And you shouldn't be either. Think about it.
Like he was going to think about anything else. I'm not the impulsive type,
he explained.
You know I overthink almost everything. I enjoy figuring out the way things work.
She's not a building that you're doing the electrical work on, Jace. She's a woman you want to spend your life with. If you spend too much time overanalyzing the situation, she's going to think you're not interested. She's going to think you don't care. She snorted with disgust. Where has being overly cautious gotten you, huh? That made him laugh a little.
Well, I could say it's gotten me a very lucrative career. I own my home, I make good money, I've got a retirement account.
He shrugged.
I'm doing better financially than a lot of my friends are.
Well, whoop-de-doo. I hope your bank statements keep you warm at night, she muttered. I can't show my friends pictures of your 401k, Jace. I'd like to have great grandkids while I'm still young enough to enjoy them.
Graham, you're only 71. And need I remind you that you won the hula hoop competition yesterday and beat out people half your age?
She preened. I beat out those teenagers, too. Hugging her close, he nodded.
Yes, you did. So don't start playing it up like you're getting old, because you're not.
Jace.
I get what you're saying. I do. But can't you just be happy knowing that I'm working on it?
Her sigh was loud and very dramatic. Fine. But I'm not happy about it. With all the hanky-panky going on in that cabin of yours, you should be making an honest woman of Kelsey right now. Kind of a disgrace, if you ask me.
Graham.
Fine, fine. As long as you don't wait too long, and you let me know the minute you decide.
Kelsey will be the first to know. But then I promise we'll let you know, okay?
If you need an engagement ring on the fly, you can have mine. Your grandfather is giving me a new ring at the party. He doesn't know that I know, but I know. It was his turn to sigh loudly.
You're killing me, Graham. Can we please just drop this for now?
Making a zipping motion over her lips, she didn't say another word until they reached the lake. Jace led her over to a shaded bench where they sat down.
I love looking at this lake. It doesn't matter the time of day. It's just peaceful and lovely. It breaks my heart that this is the last trip where I'll get to enjoy this view.
It was on the tip of his tongue to tell her about his conversation with Walker, but he didn't want to get her hopes up. That whole situation was between him, Walker, and Kelsey. With any luck, he'd have good news to share soon enough. And not just about Lakeview Harbor Resort. I'm so glad I brought a dressy dress with me, Kelsey murmured to herself as she checked her reflection in the mirror. It wasn't full length, and it was a bit awkward to fully see herself, but from what she could see, she looked pretty darn good. Smoothing a hand over the snug bodice, she let out a small breath. The peach color looked fantastic against her tanned skin, and honestly, she loved the vintage look of a swing dress. Was it too dressy? Not dressy enough? Tonight was the big anniversary party, and she had been so focused on hearing about all the details of the menu and music that she never really bothered to ask about what everyone was wearing. Earlier today, she thought she'd be able to ask Lori or even Jace what she should wear, but the entire day was spent welcoming all of Jace's relatives, and there were a lot of them. Growing up in a small family, Kelsey never experienced large gatherings like this. Both her parents were only children, as were her grandparents. She was literally the only one left on either side of her family, so this was all overwhelming. Jace was an only child, but Lori had 4 sisters and 3 brothers. Back when she and Jace were kids, she remembered meeting some of his cousins, but it didn't really register just how extended his family was. Now she knew, and she hoped she could remember everyone's names.
Knock, knock,
Jace called out as he walked into her cabin.
I'm not too early, am I?
Smiling, she walked out of the bedroom and posed. Is this dressy enough for the party? I feel like this is such an important night, and I don't want to stick out for not being dressed up enough. He was wearing a dark suit with a snowy white shirt. No tie, but so elegant. He was devastatingly handsome. Walking over, he wrapped his arms around her waist and studied her.
You look beautiful. The dress is perfect.
He paused briefly.
You're perfect.
His voice was low and a little gruff, and it felt like an important moment. In a move she was coming to love, one of Jace's strong hands came up and gently caressed her cheek. She leaned into it and sighed happily.
Is it wrong that I'd rather spend time alone with you than have to share you with everyone at the party tonight?
Kelsey felt her cheeks heat.
I leave in a couple of days. And as much as I love my family, and I'm happy for my grandparents reaching this milestone, I don't want to miss out on even a minute of the time we have left.
You're not, she consoled. I'm going to be by your side the entire time. I promise. Besides, I don't know anyone there except for your parents, grandparents, and you. You've introduced me to everyone, but I don't know them. So I'm going to be stuck to your side like glue. That seemed to please him because he visibly relaxed.
I like the sound of that, Kels. And not just at the party.
Smiling, she was about to comment, but he had more to say.
I know this probably isn't the right time. We need to be up at the lodge in a few minutes, but I want you to know that I don't want what we have to end when I have to go back to Raleigh.
He blurted out.
And the thought of leaving you here, it's killing me. I know it's fast, and I know that you probably think this is too soon, but I want more with you. With us.
His shoulders sagged as he let out a slow breath.
You've been through so much, and the last thing I want to do is add any pressure on you.
Another pause.
Say something. Say something, please, because I need to know if I'm freaking you out or if I'm misreading things between us.
Panic kept her paralyzed for several long moments before she could speak. "You're not freaking me out," she quietly assured him. "But I'm afraid to think too far ahead. I mean, the last time you left Lakeview Harbor Resort at the end of your vacation, I didn't see you again for more than a decade." The nervous laugh was out before she could stop it. "I know that's not going to happen again, but it's there. And a small part of me can't help but think about it."
I was a kid then, Kelsey. I didn't know any better. I didn't know this was love.
Gasping quietly, she looked up at him. "Love?"
Yeah.
He whispered, caressing her cheek again.
Love. I'm in love with you, Kelsey. Back when we were kids, I didn't understand that everything I felt for you was so real. And this time, when I have to leave Lakeview Harbor Resort, this isn't going to end. I don't know how everything's going to fall into place, but I know that it will. Because I don't want to live without you. I know you need time to figure out where you want to live. And if you want to stay in Rochester, then I'm moving to Rochester. And if you want to move to Raleigh, then I'll clear out half of the primary closet and make room for you. Hell, I'll put half my house into storage to make room for all your things.
Tears stung her eyes. "Chase, I don't even know what to say. This is so much more than I let myself even dream."
I know, beautiful girl. I was trying to take things slow, but we've already missed out on so many years that I don't want to miss out on more.
Leaning forward, he rested his forehead against hers.
We're not going to have all the answers right now, or even tonight. There are a lot of things to work out, a lot of logistical things. But I want us to work them out together. Okay?
Wordlessly, she nodded and sagged with relief when he claimed her lips with his. It wasn't wildly passionate or even seductive, but it was a kiss full of promise and confidence that they had all the time in the world to be like this. Just not right now. Slowly, Kelsey pulled back and ran her hand along his jaw. "I seriously could kiss you all night just like that and be the happiest girl in the world. But we need to head up to the lodge. I don't want your grandmother to think we're not coming."
As much as I'd like to argue that point, you're right. It won't matter that there are 50 other people there. She's going to be looking specifically for us.
Glancing around her cabin, he asked,
"Do you have everything?"
Let me just grab my purse." Laughing softly, she went back into the bedroom to grab it before walking back out to the living room. In theory, I know I don't need to bring a purse. I could give you my cabin key and be totally fine. But then there's my phone and my lipstick, and it suddenly becomes a whole thing. Holding up the small clutch, she smiled. At least it's tiny, right? Opening the door for her, he commented, "As long as it has everything you want or need, it doesn't matter." They stepped out onto the porch and locked the door behind them. It was another beautiful night, and it felt lovely to just stroll along the path up toward the lodge. No one else was around, and that seemed a little odd, but she figured they timed it so they were going to maybe be a little late, which is what she mentioned to Jace.
"My folks took my grandparents up to the lodge about an hour ago so they could oversee the room being set up and then be there to greet people. I'm honestly happy to not be going up as a group."
"How come?"
"I'm all for a leisurely stroll once in a while, but every time we walk anywhere with them, it's almost painful how slow we have to walk."
They both laughed at that. "That's fair. Still, it's hard to be annoyed by it," she reasoned. "Some of the conversations we've had or overheard have been kind of hysterical. Your grandmother is a riot."
"That she is."
Jace paused, and when Kelsey looked up at him, she could tell he had more to say on the subject. "Jace?"
"Yesterday, when you went into town with my mother, Graham and I went for a walk down to the lake. She's very fond of you, you know."
"Oh, that's sweet. I'm fond of her, too."
Another pause.
"Why do I feel like you're trying not to tell me something?"
"Well, maybe because I am,"
he replied, laughing softly.
"Okay, here's the thing. She loves that we're together, but it, distresses her a bit that we're not, or that we're like..."
"Wow, you are really bad at this," she teased. "Why are we upsetting her?"
"Because we're sleeping together, and she's old-fashioned, and she thinks it's a disgrace that, and these are her words, not mine, that I'm not making an honest woman out of you."
The bark of laughter was out before she could stop it. "Oh my God! Are you serious?" More laughter. "I mean, wow. I didn't think anyone even said things like that anymore."
"Yeah, well, she said it to me, so if I had to be traumatized, it seemed only fair that you were too."
"Aw, aren't you sweet?" she joked. "I'm a little embarrassed knowing she thinks all those things. My grandparents passed away a long time ago, so I had no idea what it would be like dealing with the older generation in situations like this." She paused. Or that there would even be a reason to be discussing our sex lives.
To be fair, if we weren't all staying within 20 feet of each other, there would be no discussion. Unfortunately, logistics aren't on our side.
Kelsey knew it was unreasonable to think that no one was noticing the fact that she and Jace were spending their nights together. She just didn't expect anyone to say anything about it out loud. "I'm not sure there's any way to make her unthink all of this, huh?"
"I'm afraid not, love."
"Drats."
"I never should have said anything,"
Jace said with a groan.
"And certainly not as we're getting ready to walk into their party."
Another groan.
"I'm sorry."
"Don't apologize. I asked." She shrugged. They reached the entrance to the lodge, and Jace held the door open for her. They were greeted by several members of the staff, who pointed them toward the party room. They could already hear the soft music and the sound of laughter. When they were only a few steps away from the party, Jace stopped her.
"If you don't want to go in, you don't have to. I never should have said anything about my conversation with my grandmother. But, for the record, she didn't mean anything malicious by it. She genuinely loves you, and it's more me she has an issue with. But if you're embarrassed, then you don't have to stay. I'll explain what I did and..."
"Jace?"
"Hmm?"
"I'm fine. I'm a big girl.
and I believe we had a similar discussion about this a week ago. I can handle myself. I'm not ashamed of our relationship. So, she held out her hand to him. Come on. We've got an emerald wedding anniversary to celebrate. Emerald? What? Emeralds are the symbol for a 55th wedding anniversary, she explained. Lucky for you I know these things, huh? Luckily, he didn't argue, and they walked through the doorway and joined his parents, who were directing everyone on where to sit and where the guests of honor were at. So they spent the evening mingling with family, dancing, eating, and laughing. It was one of the best nights she'd had in a really long time. Being with Jace's family was like, well, it was like coming home, oddly. It didn't take long for it to feel like she'd known these people all her life. By the end of the night, it was as if she'd just made dozens of new friends, and it made her heart ridiculously happy. They stayed until the party ended, and then did the leisurely group stroll back to their cabins while trying not to laugh at all of Jace's eye rolls. When they said goodnight to everyone and wished his grandparents a happy anniversary again, Eleanor pulled her aside. For a moment, Kelsey panicked, because for all her big talk about being able to handle herself, she really didn't want to have a conversation about sex. I just want you to know, Eleanor began, that it meant the world to me that you came to our party tonight. Seeing you and my grandson together has been the best gift anyone could have given us. She cupped Kelsey's face. Don't be afraid, Kelsey, she whispered fiercely. Don't be afraid to take that leap of faith. You could be embarking on the adventure of a lifetime. And with that, she gave her a kiss on the cheek and returned to her husband's side. Good night, everyone. Thank you for a wonderful evening. It wasn't until they were in Jace's cabin that he spoke. Are you okay? Did she say something to upset you? If she did, I'll go over right now and... Kelsey held up a hand to stop him. She didn't upset me. If anything, she gave me some wonderful advice. Oh? One dark brow arched. Moving in close, she smoothed a hand up over his chest, coming to rest over his heart. I want to move to Raleigh. I want to start a new life with you. I'm ready. If you truly want me there with you, then I'm going to pack up all my things in Rochester, sell the house, and be with you. His smile was so tender, and his eyes shone with unshed tears. Kelsey Brooks, I definitely want you there with me. Hell, I want you everywhere I go. Forever. Then he was kissing her, and they were done talking for now. And that was just fine with her. They had the rest of their lives. Epilogue. 1 month later. I think that's the last of it. Jace looked around, shaking his head with amusement. Are we sure? Because the last time we said that, another dozen boxes appeared out of nowhere. Oh, stop. We knew there was going to be a lot, and I totally forgot to look under that blanket in the back of the moving truck. Even now, she couldn't be quite sure she had grabbed all the boxes. Give me a minute. I'll look again. There might be 1 or 2 small ones on the front seat. Jace had flown up to Rochester 5 days ago and helped her pack up the house and then the moving truck. It had been hard to say goodbye to her childhood home, but she had sold it to a sweet little family, and she knew they were going to make the best memories there. Once the house was empty, Jace had climbed behind the wheel of the moving truck for the drive down to Raleigh, and she had followed in her little SUV. It had taken 2 days to get here, but now Kelsey genuinely felt like she could say she was home. I'll go look,
he assured her.
Why don't you—
His words were cut off by the ringing of his phone. After glancing at the screen, he frowned.
I need to take this. Can you—
I'll go double and triple check for boxes, she told him. Go. Outside, she found one box and a small bag that had somehow slid under the driver's seat of her car. After inspecting everywhere else, she could now say with great certainty that this was definitely the last of it. Relieved, she stepped back into the house and shut the door. Jace's home was amazing. It was a cozy 3-bedroom brick ranch on a beautiful wooded lot. When they first started planning this move, he had explained that the house was a good fit for him, but he always knew it wasn't his forever home. They were going to find that one together. She still sighed happily at the memory of that discussion. Things were definitely going to be tight around here once she unpacked, but luckily she had put a lot of stuff in storage. Hard to believe these are all the necessities, she murmured, hoping Jace didn't think she was a high-maintenance person. Speaking of Jace, she wondered where he was. She could hear him talking, but she didn't know the layout of the house well enough to pinpoint which room he was in. Plus, it was obvious the call was important and private, so she didn't want to interrupt. Unfortunately, there wasn't anything she could do until he was done, because she couldn't really start unpacking without him. Sighing, she went to the kitchen, grabbed a bottle of water, and sat down on the sofa. With nothing else to do, she picked up her phone and just scrolled through her social media to pass the time. Several minutes later, Jace came strolling into the room, smiling. Without a word, he went to the kitchen and grabbed himself a drink before joining her on the sofa. Everything okay? Taking a sip of water, he nodded.
Absolutely.
Reaching for her hand, he held it in his.
So, what do you think? Ready to tackle some unpacking?
I want to say yes.
But
I'm pretty beat, she admitted. I know this has to be done, and I hate being in the middle of chaos, but maybe we can hit pause for an hour? She expected him to argue or tell her why it would be better for them not to take a break, but he surprised her.
That actually sounds good, because I just got off a call that I wanted to talk to you about.
Her heart immediately began to race. Was it Walker? Frowning, Jace shook his head.
Damn. No. Sorry. It was my real estate agent. He has a house he'd like us to look at this week. I know it's soon, but it may help us decide how much to unpack.
Oh, well, that's even more exciting. Then she paused. Wait, he doesn't want us to see it today, does he?
No, tomorrow. Is that okay? I told him I'd have to talk to you first since we've already had a chaotic week.
Whew, okay, good. I don't see why we can't go and look at it tomorrow. Did he send pictures? A link to the listing? Jace pulled his phone from his pocket and swiped the screen a few times before handing it to her.
I know you don't have anything to really gauge it by, but it's only 10 minutes from here.
Laughing softly, she had to agree. Yeah, that doesn't mean much to me. Most of the drive here is a blur, so...
So we're okay with going tomorrow?
Absolutely. It's kind of exciting. Scrolling through the pictures, she admired the newly renovated kitchen and the overall craftsman style of the house. It's a lot bigger than this house. Do you think we need that much space?
If it's our forever home, then yes.
He settled in a bit closer to her so they could look through the pictures together. They talked about what they liked and didn't like about it, but overall it seemed like a good contender. It would be crazy to pick the first house we saw, but maybe he can pick a few more houses for us to look at over the next week?
I can certainly ask.
Taking the phone back, Jace tapped out a text. Then his shoulders sagged and he groaned. What? She asked. What's the matter?
I just realized we might have an issue.
With
I lied.
What? When? Turning his head, he looked her straight in the eye.
Just now. It wasn't just the real estate agent I spoke to. I also talked to Walker.
Oh my God, she whispered. And?
And it looks like we're investing in Lakeview Harbor Resort.
Gasping, Kelsey felt her eyes go almost comically wide. Are you serious right now? Really? He's doing it?
We're doing it,
he corrected.
Us, Walker, Axel, Milo, Connor, and Slater. They're all in.
Launching herself into his arms, she happily screeched. This is amazing! Oh my God, what did he say? When is it happening? What do we need to do? Holding her close, he kissed her soundly before pulling back.
We're going to have a call with everyone Wednesday night, but it looks like you may have saved Lakeview Harbor Resort. You're amazing.
She blushed at his praise. Well, it was a team effort. And I can't believe how things are falling into place and how much my life has changed for the better. Sighing happily, she looped her arms around his shoulders. Ever since I bumped into you that day, you turned my life around. I love you, Jace.
Love you too, Kelsey. My forever girl.
This recording of #Resort Romance was presented by Dreamscape Media, LLC. Narrated by Rebecca Gibble. Published by arrangement with Samantha Chase. Copyright 2025 by Samantha Chase. Recording copyright 2025 by Dreamscape Media, LLC. Thank you for listening. Please check dreamscapepublishing.com for Dreamscape's latest releases.